Chapter 1755. With Lotus Sun's help, rescuing Jiang Yingying would be as easy as blowing off dust. Silver Fox and the others wouldn't be able to stop her at all. Boom! A resounding boom erupted, and the gate of the building that Jiang Yingying was imprisoned in was blasted open by Mysterious Sea's simulated red spirit light. The quaint stone gate was instantly sliced into pieces, and was neatly sliced into tofu cubes. Wearing the nine-tailed fox mask, Lotus Sun stepped in, but Silver Fox anxiously grabbed Jiang Yingying and choked her. "If you come any closer, I'll kill him." Silver Fox was truly afraid now, and his face was distorted. Heh! Lotus Sun laughed softly, completely disregarding Silver Fox and the others. Sword chi surged from her body, and in an instant, it split into several sword chi bodies that appeared behind Silver Fox and the other Xiaotian Alliance members at an incredible speed, moving like a ghost. These sword chi bodies were precise, and appeared almost instantaneously to seize Silver Fox and the others. Then, they lifted their legs and directly buried them underground, leaving only their heads above the ground. His actions were completed in an instant, and Silver Wolf and the others did not have the time to react to it. This sword chi was really too powerful and incomparably ferocious. When the sword chi bodies approached, the blindfold covering Jiang Yingying's eyes was blown away on the spot. After a burst of dazzling light, Jiang Yingying was finally able to make out the newcomer's appearance. "You are. I was entrusted by your grandfather to save you." Lotus Sun stared blankly for a moment before speaking. She deliberately changed her voice so that Jiang Yingying wouldn't be able to tell. "There are two people at my door. One is a scarecrow, and the other is also a scarecrow." At that moment, Wang Ling suddenly recalled a passage from an ancient text of literature. This text was called 10,000 Words of Writing, and was a collection of classic sayings from various great literary masters. It was said to be of great help in purifying one's mind and even in breaking through critical bottlenecks. As for why he had suddenly recalled this passage, it was because he had seen these black divine birds woven from doomsday straws. Tens of thousands of these black divine birds were woven from such a mystical material, and it could be said that the strength of the mastermind behind this was truly extraordinary. Wang Ling asked the other ancient ones in the picture of the body, but none of them seemed to be able to think of anyone who was particularly good at using this kind of straw. This was because there were many primordial ones who knew how to weave doomsday straws. Since everyone knew how to do it, no one would pay attention to the people around them. If someone had purposely hidden their abilities during the primordial era and only used them now, it would indeed be hard for the primordial ones to consider. This person must have hidden himself very deeply. The weaving of doomsday straws is very troublesome. To be able to weave these black birds on such a scale, this person must be at least in the ancestor realm. Then in everyone's opinion, what is the realm of the ancestor realm? Was it the human ancestor, the earth ancestor, or the heaven ancestor? Or could it be an ancestral king or an ancestral immortal? Ancestral kings and ancestral immortals are out of the question. The higher levels have a higher chance. AI. There's no point in discussing this person's realm here. In any case, there's no way he can beat Ling Zhenren. Wang Ling. I don't think it's a question of whether or not Ling Zhenren can beat him. Even Miss Lotus Sun has a hard time dealing with him. Inside the Supreme Corpse winding painting, the group of primordial ones with their skeletal bodies were engaged in a heated discussion. There was no doubt that this was the truth. In fact, Wang Ling's misgivings about these primordial ones weren't because of how strong they were, but because what on earth had they done after escaping Dao Ancestor Wang's demonic clutches back then? And why had they taken the side of the evildoer? Of course, these were questions for another time. After all, Wang Ling still hadn't figured out the real reason why Dao Ancestor Wang had used all kinds of excuses to seal the primordial ones in the Supreme Corpse winding painting back then. He felt that the best way to find out was to directly ask Dao Ancestor Wang. The main thing was that he didn't have any clues at the moment, and who knew how long it would take for him to figure out the logic behind Dao Ancestor Wang's actions. But putting aside all these factors and just relying on intuition, Wang Ling felt that Dao Ancestor Wang's actions were in fact a kind of protection. Dao Ancestor Wang didn't have a good reputation now, and had always been regarded as an enemy by these primordial ones, who had been given the title of Old Thief Wang. But Wang Ling still felt that his intuition might be right. While he was thinking this, he was already in his snow-white tracksuit and had entered the vicinity of Myriad Treasure City. Lotus Sun was rescuing Jiang Yingying, so the purpose of his trip wasn't to rescue Jiang Yingying, but to find Wang Muyu ahead of time and avoid a mishap. He realized that this little one's temper was too bad. He was usually well-behaved and clever, but in the end, he turned hostile so quickly. When all was said and done, he was still a child. Following Audiobook's arrangements, Wang Ling went to the spirit plant stall and took the pass to the underground information trading market as well as a raccoon mask. But just as he put it on, an old man suddenly came over to him. "Young man, which side are you from?" It was a very familiar voice. He seemed to have heard it on TV before. Wang Ling turned his head, and he couldn't help feeling a little stunned under the mask. Because the person standing behind him at that moment was none other than Zhang Wuxing himself. It was just that Zhang Wuxing had deliberately used a disguise technique to prevent others from seeing his true appearance. But how could this kind of disguise escape Wang Ling's eyes? He had also come to take the pass and the mask, and hadn't seen what Wang Ling's face looked like. When he came closer, Wang Ling was already wearing the raccoon mask. Seeing this familiar movement, Zhang Wuxing instantly knew that the young man in front of him was probably someone sent by the battle sect. Zhang Wuxing looked at Wang Ling and raised his eyebrows. "Young man, you have some guts. Are you also here to carry out a mission?" Wang Ling. Zhang Wuxing didn't say much, and there wasn't the slightest hint of a smile on his face. He immediately put on the Sichuan opera mask that the shop owner had prepared, then looked at Wang Ling. "Since you're here, let's work together." Wang Ling. He could sense the youthful vigor in Wang Ling, so he judged that Wang Ling was very young and his strength wasn't very high. It was good for young people to be impulsive, but the underground market was a big black market, and the waters were very deep. If you only knew how to charge forward blindly, that would be the behavior of a boorish man. "Young man, sometimes it's good to be impulsive, but you also have to look at the actual situation. But don't worry, since I'm here, we'll work together to ensure that you'll be fine. Also, this is a rare learning opportunity." Wang Ling. After another 10 or so seconds, Wang Ling also followed Zhang Wuxing into the underground market for intelligence. At the same time, the spirit plant shop owner who was responsible for handing over the mask and pass also took off his mask. He was none other than Zhou Zi, who Audiobook had pulled along to help. After seeing Wang Ling enter the underground market with Zhang Wuxing, Zhou Zi immediately called Audiobook to report the situation. Shifu happened to run into Zhang Wuxing when he was taking the token, and now he's going in with him. Audiobook dropped his forehead into his hand. This was really going to turn into a mahjong table. Chapter 1756. Classmate Zhang, are you okay? Lotus Sun stepped forward and untied Zhang Yingying. She didn't know why, but she always felt that the person wearing the nine-tailed fox mask in front of her was somewhat familiar. In fact, when Lotus Sun had first appeared, Zhang Yingying had been blindfolded and had had the misconception that Lotus Sun had come to save her. However, in the end, this idea was instantly shattered by her. Especially after her blindfold was blown off and she saw that this person's sword chi was red. Firm, fierce, and domineering. It was completely different from Lotus Sun's mysterious sea. Zhang Yingying couldn't help but laugh at herself in her heart. She didn't know what she was imagining. To actually want her rival in love to save her? This idea was a little too naive. Lotus Sun then spoke. The nine-tailed fox mask had a voice-changing function, so Lotus Sun's voice sounded very different from her original one. "What's your name?" Zhang Yingying asked. Lotus Sun quickly replied, "I'm Wang Meili." "Oh, then I'll call you Sister Beautiful." Zhang Yingying smiled very brightly. Although everyone had always said that Zhang Yingying looked very similar to herself, including Lotus Sun herself, who would occasionally fall into a daze when she looked at her face to face, the truth was that after looking at her for a long time and carefully distinguishing them, one could still tell them apart. For example, Lotus Sun found that when Zhang Yingying smiled, she looked completely different from herself. "They didn't do anything to you, did they?" Lotus Sun asked. "Not bad, just got slapped twice." Zhang Yingying rubbed her face. In fact, for the sake of the video shoot, Silver Fox hadn't used much force. Lotus Sun examined her and used the cell phone she had prepared to contact Battle Sect to film for evidence. Then, she used Mysterious Sea's power to help Zhang Yingying heal her injuries. Zhang Yingying hadn't been able to tell that she was using red spirit chi. "By the way, do you know why they caught you?" Lotus Sun asked as Wang Meili as she healed. Of course she already knew what was going on, so this question was just a test. They caught the wrong person. They were going to catch the young miss of Huaguo Water Curtain Group. Jiang Yingying smiled bitterly. At first, I said they caught the wrong person, but they didn't believe me and even hit me. Then they realized they really had caught the wrong person. So they decided to beat them at their own game. Beat them at their own game. Yeah, they seem to have some dirt on that Missy and want to take a video to prove it. He wanted to catch her, but he caught me instead. Then, they wanted me to cooperate with them and shoot a video. But I didn't promise them, said Jiang Yingying. That's why I got beaten up. Lotus Sun's heart trembled at these words. Suddenly, she realized that she didn't hate Jiang Yingying as much anymore. Under such a dangerous situation, even if Jiang Yingying really betrayed her, she would also think that Jiang Yingying had been forced to do this to protect her life, so she wouldn't really blame her. But now, hearing Jiang Yingying's words, Lotus Sun couldn't help but feel upset. After a moment of silence, she asked Jiang Yingying, but according to the news from the battle sect, Jiang Yingying didn't even have a single soul. You said that you have a grudge with this young lady, but actually, you can sell her out to protect yourself, right? How do you even know this? Jiang Yingying seemed to have thought of something, and her face suddenly turned red. Don't tell me even my grandfather knows about this? If he finds out, I'll be screwed. Don't worry, student Jiang, the battle sage doesn't know for now. Lotus Sun comforted her. Jiang Yingying patted her chest and sighed in relief. She didn't know if it was because this Wang Meili had saved her, but she suddenly felt that this was someone she could freely pour out her heart to. She had never told anyone about these things. For one thing, she didn't dare, and for another, she felt that even if she did, no one would necessarily understand her and listen to her. But now, facing this Wang Meili who had saved her, she had an inexplicable sense of trust in Wang Meili even though they weren't very familiar. In fact, there's no grudge between us. Jiang Yingying sighed. We just fell in love with the same person, that's all. What she did to me wasn't too much. It was just that she was targeting me. If it were me, I would have done the same thing. It's very normal. But isn't this a good opportunity to step on her? Lotus Sun asked sharply. That's true. But these evil people are evil people. If I help them, won't I be helping the wicked? Jiang Yingying laughed. And in the end, this is a matter between us little girls. There's no need to use this kind of method to ruin someone's reputation. She's my competitor, and as my competitor, I believe she would never do something so immoral. Lotus Sun didn't say anything for a very long time after hearing these words, but she was moved. After suppressing her emotions, she helped Jiang Yingying with the last bit of the treatment. She then took out a small mirror and handed it to Jiang Yingying. Student Jiang, you can take a look in the mirror. I've already healed your injuries, and I've also helped you fix the red marks on your face. Thank you, Sister Beautiful. It really doesn't hurt much anymore. Jiang Yingying nodded and took the mirror. Looking at herself in it, she couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. Why do I feel like my face has paled a lot? Sister Beautiful is too awesome. It's all just some small tricks. Lotus Sun said modestly. By the way, Sister Beautiful and I hit it off right from the start. Sister Beautiful is so skilled. Can I learn a few tricks from you? Jiang Yingying suddenly changed the subject at that moment, an expectant look in her eyes. You mean, become my disciple? Lotus Sun stared blankly. Yes, that's it. I don't know if this will break the rules of the battle sect, said Jiang Yingying. In fact, she had long since noticed the battle sect's emblem on Lotus Sun's Hanfu, and immediately knew that this big sister in front of her was from the battle sect. And judging from her hand, she was very likely an elder. If you want to be my disciple, then the battle sage. If Grandpa finds out, I'll take responsibility for this matter. He won't ask any questions, said Jiang Yingying. Jiang Yingying said, I'm a girl, and he's been teaching me hand-to-hand combat, martial arts, and body arts. But what I really want to learn is fighting skills that are easier to use. Just like how pretty sister swept those guys with her sword chi. How cool was that? Chapter 1757. When Jiang Yingying saw Lotus Sun use her sword technique, she felt as if a string in her heart had been tugged. Jiang Yingying's generation was often influenced by classic movies and TV dramas, such as The Legend of Sword and Knight Rider. When the protagonists in the TV dramas rode on swords and traveled to the ends of the world with their swords, almost everyone who saw them would dream of being a hero. Even a girl would dream of becoming a heroine, not just a pure magical girl. But reality was always crueler than fantasies. Jiang Yingying didn't become a sword-wielding heroine, nor did she become a magical girl. Instead, she braced herself and was groomed by martial sage Jiang as his successor. Wing Chun, Tai Chi, Song Huadan, Lightning Whip. It was actually very difficult for her to learn all of them. Jiang Yingying had always felt that she didn't have the talent for martial arts. After studying for so many years, she felt that she had only scratched the surface. It definitely wasn't enough to become the successor of the martial sage. At most, when she was old, she could open some healthcare institution and use the name of the head of some Xingyi martial art to make some money and cut off the leeks of those middle-aged and old cultivators who were trying to prolong their lives. But that would definitely be very humiliating, and most importantly, it would affect the reputation that martial sage Jiang had built up over the years. Even if she wasn't his biological granddaughter, Jiang Yingying's feelings for the martial sage were real. She didn't want to wait many years for her grandfather's reputation to be ruined in her hands. At the same time, she didn't want to lie on the sofa when she was over 50 and say things like, "I'm a middle-aged man with nothing to show for it," and "I'm very regretful that I was born a human." Thus, when Jiang Yingying saw Lotus Sun pretending to be Wang Meili use her sword technique, her eyes instantly lit up. She grabbed Lotus Sun's hand and expressed her desire. "Sister Meili, I really don't want to be a useless person in the future. Aren't we all chasing after independent women now?" "Don't say any more. I'll agree." Even Lotus Sun hadn't expected that she would go along with Jiang Yingying's words and agree. Sometimes it was very simple for girls to resonate with each other. You just had to get to the point. Even if there were grudges between them, they could instantly become good sisters and best friends. They didn't even need to go to the bathroom hand in hand or go shopping together to cultivate feelings. "Then, what type of sword do you like to use?" Actually, she couldn't teach Jiang Yingying anything about swordsmanship. After all, Jiang Yingying's strength was mainly due to Mysterious C and Mysterious C's passive ability. Thus, if one wanted to be unrivaled in swordsmanship, the most important thing was to have a strong enough weapon. Sword. "An ordinary one will do. I'm here to learn sword techniques." "That won't do." "Yingying, do you know that there are many types of sword arts? You must first determine your own path. For example, if you're good at using a light sword, it's impossible for you to use a light sword to execute a heavy sword technique." "Oh, I see." Jiang Yingying nodded. "So, the great sword?" "Great sword." Lotus Sun was a little surprised by this choice. In truth, she hadn't expected Jiang Yingying to walk the path of a two-handed sword. "Is there a problem, beautiful sister?" No problem. I can also teach the sword," Lotus Sun said. After all, Mysterious C could imitate all kinds of sword chi. As long as she switched it to great sword mode and had it imitate a sword technique, she could learn it first and then teach it to Jiang Yingying. Thus, Lotus Sun wasn't thinking about how to teach the great sword at all. Instead, she was thinking about how to choose a suitable one for Jiang Yingying. There were so many spirit swords in the Sword King realm. There had to be a suitable one. "When the time comes, I'll give you a great sword. It's best to nurture feelings for spirit swords as soon as possible." Lotus Sun smiled under the nine-tailed fox mask. "Thank you, master." Hearing this, Jiang Yingying bowed in high spirits. We've talked so much, it's time to go out. The warrior saint is already looking for you. Don't let him worry." Jiang Yingying nodded. She then took Lotus Sun's hand and stood up, patting the dust off her clothes. "What about these people?" Then, she turned to look at Silver Fox and the others buried in the ground. "This is a layered space. I'll think of a way to move them out. But before that, Yingying, do you want to take revenge?" Lotus Sun looked at Silver Fox and asked, "I remember you saying that this person hit you." "I want to hit him back, but won't it hurt?" Jiang Yingying asked, trembling with fear. Although it was true that Lotus Sun had killed Silver Fox in a second, he was still several realms above Jiang Yingying. If Jiang Yingying had slapped him, the one who would have been injured would have been her. "That's fine, I'll just stick a layer of membrane on your palm." "Stick a layer of membrane?" "Actually, it's just a layer of my sword chi." "I see." Jiang Yingying chuckled and then rolled up her sleeves, looking like she was ready to go all out. A few seconds later, in the layered space, Silver Wolf and the others let out extremely horrifying squeals like pigs. Wang Ling realized that he seemed to have a constitution that made it easy for him to run into the 10 generals. Of course, he didn't know if it was a problem with his constitution or if this world was really too small. But now that he had no choice but to meet Jiang Wuxing face to face, he could only follow Jiang Wuxing and act according to the situation. Wang Ling felt that it was pretty good for him to keep an eye on them. After all, what he was most worried about was Jiang Wuxing seeing Wang Muyu and not being able to explain himself. Now that Wang Ling was following Jiang Wuxing, he could secretly guide him from behind. As for Lotus Sun and Jiang Yingying, according to the first intelligence he had received, Jiang Yingying had already been rescued. But Wang Ling still didn't let down his guard. He followed Jiang Wuxing all the way to the Roaring Sky Alliance where the Heavenly Dog was. "Is anyone there?" Jiang Wuxing's changed voice came out from behind the counter. Very quickly, the Heavenly Dog appeared behind the counter's curtain. His expression was very unsightly, and he had probably just received news that Silver Fox and the others had been wiped out in the layered space. The Heavenly Dog hadn't expected this situation. And according to the latest decision he had just made in the meeting, the other Heavenly Dogs had already decided to give up on Silver Fox and cut all ties with him. But he still did his best to remain calm and do business with the person in front of him. "Sir, what kind of information would you like to buy?" the Heavenly Dog asked in a low voice. "I'm looking for someone," said Jiang Wuxing. "May I ask who it is, sir?" "I don't know." "Boss, do you know of an intelligence peddler called Silver Fox?" "Oh, Silver Fox. I know." The Heavenly Dog nodded. "But this person already has nothing to do with our Roaring Sky Alliance. If this sir can pay us for the information, we can send Silver Fox's ashes to you." Wang Ling. He had just been dealt with by Lotus Sun and the Heavenly Dog had actually decided to give up on its partner. Wang Ling realized. This Silver Fox might not be human, but these Heavenly Dogs were real dogs. Chapter 1758. Tengu had been too decisive and skillful in directly betraying his partner without saying anything, and Wang Ling didn't know where to start cursing at him. People who did great things didn't bother with trifles. It wasn't strange that Tengu could pull off something like a lizard cutting off its tail. Wang Ling saw that Jiang Wuxing had already clenched his fists at that moment. Actually, Wang Ling could sense that Jiang Wuxing was doing his best to restrain his emotions. From the moment he had come face to face with Tengu, Jiang Wuxing had already intended to kill Wang Ling. But out of consideration for the bigger picture, he still chose to endure it and didn't directly make a move here. At this moment, the Heavenly Hound spoke. Its voice was calm and composed, but at the same time, there was a hint of mystery in it. "Mister, since we are fated to meet, I can give you a piece of information for free. Your granddaughter has already been rescued, so there's no point in you staying here." Hearing this, Jiang Wuxing couldn't help frowning under the mask. His visit here was a private matter, and it was impossible for outsiders to know about it. But Tengu had still seen through his identity, which made him feel that something was wrong. And he was certain. There had to be Tengu's spy in Wuxia Alliance and Battle Sect. "Aren't you afraid?" After thinking for a moment, Jiang Wuxing warned, "Tengu, you won't be arrogant for long." Tengu wasn't afraid, and smiled back. "Whether we exist or not isn't up to you." As he said this, Tengu was actually already certain that Jiang Wuxing wouldn't choose to make a move here. While he spoke sarcastically to Jiang Wuxing, he turned his gaze to Wang Ling, who was wearing the raccoon mask. A young cultivator wearing white tracksuits and a raccoon mask. Furthermore, he had been sent by Battle Sect and was working together with Jiang Wuxing. Tengu searched his mind, and was stunned to find that he had no information on this young man. Even if he occasionally thought of something, his mind was a mosaic. Strange, what the hell is going on? Even if he didn't know Wang Ling's specific identity, he should at least be able to see what Wang Ling looked like under the mask. In fact, from the moment Wang Ling and Jiang Wuxing had walked through the door, he had already known that the person under the mask was Jiang Wuxing. This was because the senior behind the Shao Tian Alliance and all the Heavenly Hounds had already given them a method to easily distinguish the other party's disguised appearance. Neither the transfiguration spell nor the mask that prevented the ocular spell from being cast were of any use. But unfortunately, this method had no effect on Wang Ling. All he saw was a mass of mosaics. "Damn it. I really want to know who he is." Tengu gritted his teeth. After doing intelligence work for a long time, he felt as if he had an obsessive-compulsive disorder. Logically speaking, a young cultivator shouldn't have this kind of ability that could prevent him from peeping. The magic tool in his hand could easily pierce through Jiang Wuxing's mask and see his true appearance. Not to mention a young man. One day I'll catch you. Marshal Jiang stared at the heavenly hound in front of him and said in a deep voice. Because Jiang Yingying's voice did indeed ring out in his headset. It was Jiang Yingying who had called him through Lotus Sun's battle sect communication device. His ultimate goal for this trip was to ensure his granddaughter's safety, which was the most important thing. For the sake of the bigger picture, he could choose to endure anything else. Although right now, he really wanted to give this guy wearing the Jason mask a good beating. With these words, he was about to leave with Wang Ling. But the heavenly hound suddenly grabbed his arm. Wait, Tengu. I want to know who on earth this young man standing next to you is. Jiang Wuxing and Wang Ling turned their faces almost at the same time. Question mark. After a moment of silence, Marshal Saint suddenly laughed. Is there any information you don't know? I have obsessive-compulsive disorder. As long as I'm involved in something, I have to know all the details. Tugging on Jiang Wuxing's arm, the heavenly hound said excitedly, otherwise, I won't be able to sleep. Then what does that have to do with me? It has nothing to do with you, but... After a moment of silence, the heavenly hound finally gritted its teeth. One piece of information. Tell me who he is, and I'll give you one piece of information. Any piece of information is fine. Treat it as an exchange. Hearing this, Jiang Wuxing and Wang Ling were dumbfounded at the same time. They felt that their horizons had really been broadened this time. Hee, you guys can do this? Jiang Wuxing couldn't believe it. Of course, an equivalent exchange is also possible. The heavenly hound said, besides, I'm just a dog of Duobao City. This is my decision, and the other heavenly hounds can't do anything about it. Of course, the information you propose must not harm the core interests of our Shao Tian alliance. Apart from that, we can provide you with any other information. Hearing this, Jiang Wuxing turned to look at Wang Ling next to him. Under the raccoon mask, Wang Ling couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat, but he was generally calm and at ease. He wasn't frightened by the heavenly hound's words. In fact, he was already prepared for the worst. That was, once his face was seen by these two, he would immediately erase their memories. But after taking a look at him, Jiang Wuxing actually just patted him on the shoulder and laughed. Young man, you're so young, but your willpower is pretty good. He had wanted to scare Wang Ling, but in the end, not only had he failed, he directly froze on the spot when he patted Wang Ling on the shoulder. Wait, what had he seen? Although he had only touched Wang Ling for a moment, but he had confirmed that Wang Ling had hidden cultivation potential. If his judgment wasn't wrong, he was sure that Wang Ling had a cultivation root bone that was rarely seen in 1,000 years. If he could accept him as his disciple, then there would be new hope for the successor of his Marshal Saint's legacy that he had been looking forward to all this time. Although he had put a lot of effort into Jiang Yingying, Jiang Wuxing could actually tell that his granddaughter didn't like to copy what he did. Thus, he had long since thought of looking for a new successor. It was just that he hadn't expected to run into Wang Ling today by such a coincidence. At that moment Wang Ling, who was stuck in the middle, looked particularly awkward. Because it wasn't just the heavenly hound, but also Marshal Jiang very much wanted to know who he was. It was the first time in his life that two men were staring at him with such fervent gazes, and Wang Ling felt his whole body stiffen under their gazes. So are we doing this deal or not? After a moment, the heavenly hound finally couldn't help asking. I don't think so. Jiang Wuxing sighed. Why? Because I also want to know who on earth he is. The error-free chapters of the daily life of the Immortal King will continue to be updated on the mobile game bar. There are no advertisements on the site, so please bookmark and recommend the mobile game bar. If you like the daily life of the Immortal King, please bookmark. The daily life of the Immortal King mobile game bar is updated the fastest. Chapter 1759. At the same time on the other side, Jiang Yingying was beating Silver Fox up badly. Yes, she had only hit Silver Fox because every debt has a debtor. Since Silver Fox was the only one who had hit her, Silver Fox was naturally the only one who had to pay for this debt. During the entire process of Silver Wolf being brutally beaten up, Silver Wolf subordinates, with Kangaroo as their representative, had their bodies buried in the ground and only their heads were exposed, but the fear that touched their souls was self-evident. They didn't expect a girl at the Foundation establishment stage to be so powerful after having her palm coated with a layer of sword chi. Silver Soul's face was swollen and bruised, and he seemed to have suffered serious internal injuries. Silver Fox spat out a mouthful of blood, and the amount of blood he lost was especially large. It wasn't flowing at all, but directly spurting out like a fountain. In fact, Jiang Yingying couldn't be blamed for this. After all, when she first slapped him, Silver Fox felt as if his face had been run over by a truck. In the end, she still underestimated the power of the 9 nuclei Mysterious Sea. Even though the sword-like coating on Jiang Yingying's palm was only a small part of Mysterious Sea's power, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was a drop in the ocean. But when it really landed on Silver Fox's body, only he himself knew that kind of sour feeling. In the end, before Silver Fox completely fainted, Lotus Sun still stopped Jiang Yingying. Revenge was revenge, but it wouldn't be good if she killed him. Then, she poured Mysterious Sea's healing sword chi into Silver Fox's body and healed his injuries. When that warm sword chi entered his body, Silver Fox's consciousness, which was on the verge of fainting, suddenly came back to him. The expression on his face was one of astonishment. These 2 girls in front of him were both ruthless. They actually wanted to heal him before hitting him. What kind of demons were they? Don't worry, Mr. Silver Fox. We won't do anything to you anymore. But please tell the police the truth about all the crimes you've committed in Shao Tian Alliance, Lotus Sun said. She had already informed the battle sect, but because she was acting on her own, the police and battle sect wouldn't send a large number of people over to avoid alerting the enemy. On the surface, it looked like Shao Tian Alliance had suffered a loss in silence. Her next task was to move the Silver Wolf and the others into her sword spirit space and bring them away. When he heard that he would not be beaten up, Silver Wolf breathed a sigh of relief in his heart, but he could not bring himself to be happy. There was still a gloomy look on his face. Mr. Silver Fox, do you have any other questions? Lotus Sun asked. I was thinking, even if you really take me away and hand me over to the police, whether or not I can survive is also a problem, Silver Wolf said with a sigh. Ever since he and his subordinates had been subdued by Lotus Sun and there had been no movement from the Howling Heaven Alliance, Silver Fox already knew his fate. He knew he had been abandoned. You mean the Shao Tian Alliance will come to kill you? Lotus Sun asked. The Shao Tian Alliance is just a branch. Today, even if the Shao Tian Alliance is destroyed by you, it will fall. In the future, there will be other alliances that will become new branches and grow again. That's why I said that the Heavenly Hound is the backbone. You're absolutely right. When he thought of this, the Silver Wolf sighed and said, the Heavenly Hounds are all over the world. Unless we capture all of them in one fell swoop, the head of the Underground Intelligence Network will forever be controlled by the Heavenly Hounds. They should have already received the news that you rushed here. But they haven't sent anyone to save me and my subordinates. So you think you've already been abandoned? Yes, that's right. Also, even if you send me to prison, I might not be safe. Silver Wolf looked at Lotus Sun's 9-tailed fox mask and said, because even if you send me to prison, there's no guarantee that there won't be any Heavenly Hound people in there. The Heavenly Hound people had already infiltrated so widely? They even existed in prison? Lotus Sun frowned. She felt that this was very useful information. But as the backbone of the big tree, not everyone could become a member of the Heavenly Hound. The Heavenly Hound itself was in fact a symbol of the elite. Taking Songhai First Prison as an example, those high-level jailers and prisoners who had committed crimes with high IQ technology in the past could all be members of the Heavenly Hound. But if that was the case, the scope of the investigation would really be too wide. No wonder the International Alliance of Cultivators had previously issued a notice for all countries to keep a close eye on the Heavenly Hound's movements and seize the opportunity to catch them all in one fell swoop. Because if they were completely left alone and allowed the Heavenly Hounds to expand and develop without limit, they would indeed become a considerable threat. At the same time, the person behind the Heavenly Hound to be able to support and operate such a large organization probably wasn't an ordinary small fry. So, who on earth is that senior standing behind you? Lotus Sun asked again. She had already sensed that the person behind the scenes was extraordinary, and knew that it was very likely that he was also an eternal one. How could someone of my level know something like this? I just know that this senior has extraordinary means. Silver Wolf smiled and said, if you want to find out information about this senior, you have to at least catch the Heavenly Hound. And it has to be of a higher grade. There are grades among the heavenly hounds? Of course there are grades. The higher the grade of the heavenly hound, the larger the intelligence network it can operate. As far as I know, there are 10 grades. 10th grade is the highest grade. Silver Wolf said, the heavenly hounds in our myriad treasure city are 3rd grade heavenly hounds. I don't think they know much about the senior behind the scenes. If you want to know more, you have to at least catch a heavenly hound at the 5th grade. But I'm afraid you won't even be able to see a heavenly hound at the 5th grade or above. They hide very well. The credibility of his words was very high. After all, Silver Wolf and the others were currently in a life-threatening situation. If they wanted to live, they could only tell the truth. But Lotus Sun was also very curious about one thing. Why hadn't Silver Wolf and the others fought with their lives? Logically speaking, shouldn't you all be tight-lipped and swear not to say anything? Of course, we have our professional ethics. Besides, there's no one in our family for a long time. We don't have any relatives related to us by blood, so we have nothing to worry about. Silver Wolf said, me, that kangaroo over there, and the others are the same. I'm the leader of this group, and I've actually been planted with a chain curse. If anything happens to me and the curse is activated, all of us will be dead. But you're still alive. Has it been cured? That's not it. Silver Wolf's face darkened, and he smiled helplessly. Wasn't it scattered by Miss Zhang's slaps just now? Chapter 1760. At the same time, elsewhere in Mishio Nation's Glio City, a secret roundtable conference was underway in a unique metal tree-shaped building called the Wisdom Tree. This was originally a landmark in Mishio Nation's Glio City, and had been founded by a cultivator headhunting company called Su Zhe. Su Zhe had risen to fame in the name of balancing talent resources over the years, with the main purpose of balancing talent among the various sects, and was specifically responsible for poaching talent. All the major cultivation sects in fact had their own talent reserve plans, including the Battle Sect. Previously, Li Huaxian of the Heavenly Spring Sect, whom Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch had taken a liking to, had already been secretly preparing to contact him. The main reason why he had to do it in secret was to avoid alerting the enemy. For example, alerting a headhunting company like Su Zhe to act as a shit-stirrer and stir things up. Of course, no one would have thought that Su Zhe, who was famous for his work as a headhunter, was actually one of the biggest intelligence operators behind the scenes. For example, the Wisdom Tree Roundtable Conference, also known as the Full Moon Conference, gathered Tengu from all over the world. Furthermore, all of them were above level 5. When Silver Fox's sitting curse didn't take effect as per normal procedure, the Tengu quickly received news that it was necessary to discuss this matter immediately. At the Roundtable Conference, all the Tengu wore that familiar Jason mask, and the stars on their foreheads symbolized their ranks, with one star representing one rank. The Tengu sitting around at the moment all had at least 5 stars on their foreheads. The person who rescued Miss Zhang was sent by the Battle Sect. Perhaps he saw through the curse on Silver Fox's body, and took the initiative to remove the curse on Silver Fox. So, it's very likely that Silver Fox has already sold us out. It's not very likely, it's more likely that he has already sold us out. He managed to survive, and in order to preserve his life, he naturally had to do this. What is Di Zun's opinion? At this point, all the Tengu at the Roundtable Conference fell silent. Di Zun here was referring to the only 10th level Tengu among the Tengu. Almost all the major intelligence came from the Venerable Sovereign, either implicitly or explicitly. However, no one had seen what this Di Zun looked like. Currently, there was only one level 10 Heavenly Hound in the entire Heavenly Hound formation. I've already sent a message to the Venerable Monarch, but I haven't received a reply yet. However, if I were to express my opinion, it would be best to get rid of the problem once and for all. That expert from the War Sect can remove the curse, and is not even afraid of the doomsday straw crow woven by the Great Senior. How could it be that easy to get rid of her? In the end, wool comes from the sheep. If the sheep is gone, the wool will become useless. At this moment, a heavenly hound with 8 stars on its forehead spoke. Heh, Lord Bar is still as domineering as ever. Another one of the 7-star heavenly hound continued. Although we have been planning to split the battle sect for a long time, I don't think this is the best time to act. Then, let's vote according to the old rules. Those who supported splitting the battle sect and those who didn't raised their hands. Finally, the number of stars on both sides will be tallied, and the opinion of the side with the higher number of stars will be adopted. Just as the heavenly hounds of level 5 and above in the wisdom tree voted, a small figure carrying a small school bag appeared on the streets of Myriad Treasure City. Wang Muyu didn't bring anything with him. He just packed some of his favorite snacks and left. As for the reason for going out, it was actually somewhat different from the rumors. Wooden Fish wasn't a completely ignorant child. It wasn't that he didn't understand that his mother was busy saving people and didn't have time to see him. The reason why he had come here was mainly because he was worried about Lotus Sun's safety. After all, he only had one mother. If it weren't for the Star Dragon gene in his body causing trouble last night, he couldn't help but use the power of the Star Dragon to do a divination, and this wouldn't have happened today. The result of the divination wasn't very good, so he had to make this trip. Of course, Wang Muyu wasn't stupid. Myriad Treasure City wasn't a place for children. He knew that if he appeared here in the body of a child, he would definitely attract attention. When the time came, not only would he be of no help, he might even be a hindrance. When all was said and done, Wang Muyu's ultimate wish was to get closer to Wang Ling and Lotus Sun, and he didn't want them to hate him. Although he had previously said that if Wang Ling didn't come to see him, he would broadcast to the world that he was Wang Ling's son and so on. That was just talk, and he didn't dare really do it. Thus, on his way to Myriad Treasure City, Wang Muyu's feelings were extremely complicated. He was only 6 years old, but he had to shoulder the heavy responsibility of maintaining a family relationship. It was really too difficult for him. Before officially entering Myriad Treasure City, he had used the dragon gene of the fat nerd dragon to swell up a little and turn into a young man. Furthermore, he was a big fatty, which was very different from his original appearance. In the end, he had only taken a few steps when he smelled the scent of a familiar person. It was his father's scent. He believed that his judgment couldn't be wrong. After all, as a combination of the Dragon Clan's outstanding genes, Wang Muyu was especially sensitive to the perception and judgment of combat strength. He could practically convert the combat strength of all his opponents into specific numbers in his mind through his perception of their auras. Wang Ling was the only exception. Wang Ling's perception in his mind wasn't a specific number. Instead, it was... That was right. It was just that it was very smart. 3 question marks. At first, Wang Muyu thought that there was something wrong with his perception system. It wasn't until he saw Wang Ling beat up Jingzi that he realized. It wasn't that there was something wrong with his perception system, but that his dad was really strong. Since daddy is here, does that mean that mommy's side should be safe? The 3? Combat strength displayed as the big hidden boss. The moment Wang Muyu saw Wang Ling, he instinctively felt a sense of security. He didn't take the initiative to greet him, because he had seen Wang Ling being taken away by an old man wearing a face mask. If he went to greet him now, he might cause trouble for his dad, right? So Wang Muyu thought so. It wasn't until he followed Wuxia Jiang into the underground intelligence market that he reached Zhou Zi, who was disguised as a spirit plant shop owner. He walked over cautiously and said to Zhou Zi, "Excuse me." Zhou Zi's face was full of question marks. He did know about Wang Muyu. It was just that with Wang Muyu's current appearance, he had no idea that the person standing in front of him was Wang Muyu. "Can you give me the badge you gave my dad?" Wang Muyu asked very politely. "Dad." Hearing this, Zhou Zi was startled. His first reaction was shock. Because he had never heard that Wuxia Jiang actually had a son. "Your dad is a warrior saint?" Zhou Zi confirmed in a low voice. At the same time, he carefully looked Wang Muyu up and down. He felt that this young man looked a little familiar, but he couldn't say that he looked like a warrior saint. Warrior saint? Wang Muyu muttered in his heart. He didn't know that warrior saint was referring to Marshal Jiang. But he knew that since he was called warrior saint, that meant that he was very good at fighting. And his dad was indeed very good at fighting. Then, Wang Muyu nodded. "Yes, he is a warrior saint." Zhou Zi shook his head. "But that's just your side of the story. That's easy." Then, Wang Muyu nodded. In the next moment, Zhou Zi felt the scene in front of him change, and everyone on the street disappeared. But it was still the layout of Duobao City. What did you do?" Zhou Zi asked in astonishment. "Nothing. I just divided the space into layers. This is a layered space, so it won't affect the real world." Wang Muyu laughed. Didn't you want me to prove it? My dad is very good at fighting, and so am I. Saying this, he rolled up his sleeves, revealed his sandbag-sized fists, and punched the ground hard. Chapter 1761. This punch was as powerful as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. It seemed to contain a kind of ancient destructive force, and it immediately cracked the ground beneath Zhou Zi's feet. Cracks formed in the ground, and with Wang Muyu's punch as the center, the terrifying cracks spread out in all directions, forming a complicated and endless abyss. Zhou Zi was stupefied. The instant Wang Muyu punched, he was wrapped in the spirit power bubble that Wang Muyu had split open. Looking at the layered world that was on the verge of collapsing after Wang Muyu's punch, Zhou Zi was utterly shocked. His mouth dropped open. This power was too strong. It was enough to prove that Wang Muyu was Battle Saint's son. Zhou Zi even felt that this power was overflowing. And for some reason, Zhou Zi seemed to hear a faint cry from Wang Muyu's punch, as if he had been beaten up. Wait a minute. Where did this cry come from? His mind was full of question marks and he was very puzzled. Seeing this, Wang Muyu swiftly cast a restoration spell to restore the messy layered space to its original appearance in the blink of an eye. It wasn't until everything was back to normal that he scratched his head in embarrassment. Sorry. I didn't mean it. I'm afraid that punch just now made the spirit of the earth cry. The spirit of the earth. Zhou Zi couldn't help swallowing. Under Audiobook's guidance these days, he had received a lot of knowledge that was beyond a normal cultivator's way of thinking and worldview, and naturally knew about the existence of the spirit of the universe. Every time his grandmaster Wang Ling made a move on earth, the spirit of the earth would tremble for fear that it would be punched through by his grandmaster if it wasn't careful, or sent flying out of the solar system with a slap like a bowling ball. As the spirit of the earth that was in a state of fear all day long, its heart was also extremely fragile. It was a spirit of the planet that was prone to cry. Wang Muyu had forgotten that even though he had cast the space division spell, no matter how much damage he caused, it wouldn't affect the real world. But according to the principle of the spell, the damage caused by the space division spell would still be reflected back on the spirit of the earth. That was the difference. One was an external injury, the other an internal one. His punch just now was too ferocious. He didn't hold back, and the power of his punch directly penetrated the earth's core. If he hadn't heard the cry of the spirit of the earth and immediately restored the situation in the layered space, the consequences would have been unimaginable. When the sobbing sound of the earth spirit rang out, Wang Ling happened to be sandwiched between Tengu and Jiang Wuxing, who were staring at each other with blazing gazes, unable to move. Almost in that brief moment, he knew where the cry of the spirit of the earth came from. What surprised him the most was that Wang Muyu, the instigator of the cry, had, in a sense, helped him out of his predicament. It's really not bad. It's worth installing. It actually supports both Android and Apple phones. Thus, Wang Ling's mood was extremely complicated at the moment. He had thought that this little guy might cause trouble for him, but he hadn't expected him to help him instead. Of course, the most important thing was, he discovered that among the snacks the little fella had brought out on this trip were crispy noodle snacks. Wang Ling's eyes instantly lit up. This was simply a kindred spirit. The cry of the spirit of the earth attracted Tengu and Jiang Wuxing's attention. Jiang Wuxing frowned and looked elsewhere. Strange, why do I hear a faint sobbing sound? It sounds like some family's girl is being abused. Wang Ling hadn't expected this third-class Tengu in front of him to actually have a sense of justice when it heard the word domestic violence. I'll check it out right now. No matter what happened, domestic violence is wrong. Just like that, the entire topic of Wang Ling's life was instantly diverted. Later, Wang Ling heard that this mysterious cry from Duobao City was listed as one of the top 10 unsolved mysteries of the cultivation world. Even after a very long time, no one could come up with a reasonable explanation. Seeing that this plentiful treasure city dog had already sunk into a new mystery, Wang Ling quickly retreated first. By the time this plentiful treasure city dog reacted, the two of them were already gone. This was an excellent opportunity to get away, and there was no way Wang Ling wouldn't seize it. But even if he was far away from this troublesome Duobao city dog, Jiang Wuxing's gaze on Wang Ling's back was still burning. Wang Ling remembered that the last one of the 10 generals who wanted to take him as a disciple was General Yi. At the time, Immortal Toya just happened to be next to him, and Wang Ling had directly used Immortal Toya as a shield. Who would have thought that after nearly half a year, he would actually run into another one? Wang Ling felt that there was something really wrong with the cultivation quality of young people in the cultivation world nowadays. There were so many cultivators in the world, how could they not find someone with a unique bone structure? As the saying went, there was no harm without comparison. If it wasn't for the fact that the cultivation quality of these young people around him generally wasn't up to standard, he wouldn't have stood out so much. After leaving the underground intelligence market, Jiang Wuxing still persistently followed Wang Ling, little brother. I won't force you to become this old man's disciple. Forced melons won't be sweet, but this old man still hopes that you can consider it. After all, your bone structure is indeed very suitable for my Holy Spirit Fist Dao. If you can cultivate this Fist Dao to the highest realm and open up the holy hall in your body. Speaking up to this point, Jiang Wuxing's eyes suddenly narrowed, and a mysterious expression appeared on his face as he said softly, "You can subdue the enemy in one move, and kill them with just one slap." Hearing this, Wang Ling forcibly suppressed the twitching corners of his mouth. Kill someone with one slap. This was his old skill, and even if he didn't learn this Fist Dao, he could still do it. He didn't speak directly. Fortunately, the appearance of an acquaintance at that moment instantly gave Wang Ling a glimmer of hope. That person was Zhou Zi. He was also Wang Ling's newly acknowledged grand disciple. Because Audiobook had already officially linked up with Lotus Sun and Jiang Yingying and was currently dealing with Silver Fox and the others, he couldn't free himself for the time being, so he had sent Zhou Zi over to help. Of course, apart from Zhou Zi, there was another person. Wang Muyu, who had come with Zhou Zi. Although this little guy had changed his appearance, when he saw Wang Muyu, he stared blankly. Jiang Wuxing was afraid that Wang Muyu wouldn't be able to stop himself from directly changing back to his original appearance and pouncing on him. If that really happened, Jiang Wuxing was afraid that he wouldn't be able to clear his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River. But the fact was that this little guy didn't do that. On the contrary, he was very quick-witted. He walked in Wang Ling's direction, then turned around and pounced directly into Jiang Wuxing's arms with his fat, shape-shifted body. "Daddy!" Jiang Wuxing was so scared that he wet his pants on the spot. "Young man, don't talk nonsense. This old man isn't married yet. How can I have a son?" Wang Muyu threw himself into Jiang Wuxing's arms and wouldn't back down. "Daddy, do you remember second mother Tan? Tan Yuha from Chenghua Great Dao's Two Immortal Bridges?" This cry instantly attracted a lot of sidelong glances. Seeing that more and more people had gathered, Jiang Wuxing didn't dare continue following Wang Ling, and directly ran away, leaving only an afterimage where he had been standing. Wang Ling suddenly realized something. This little guy. He seemed pretty fragrant. Chapter 1762. Wang Muyu's appearance was a huge surprise for both Wang Ling and Lotus Sun, but Wang Ling now realized that this little guy was more quick-witted than he had imagined. If they could establish a friendly relationship, the little guy might be able to take the same path as Audiobook and take the blame for him. Not long after Jiang Wuxing left, Audiobook and Lotus Sun arrived from the other side. Audiobook knew that this wasn't the place to talk, so he took Wang Ling, Wang Muyu and Zhou Zi to a van bearing the battle sect emblem. Almost the instant the door closed, Zhou Zi saw Wang Muyu's transformed body turn back into that of a 6-year-old child. Then, he threw himself into Wang Ling's arms and rubbed his head against the material of Wang Ling's clothes. Wang Ling didn't know if it was because this little guy looked exactly like him, but for a moment, he actually resisted the urge to slap him away. After all, he was hitting himself. It seemed a little excessive. Audiobook and Lotus Sun were envious of this scene. There was a time when he had also wanted to rub against his Shifu's arms like this. Unfortunately, he didn't have the guts, and was very afraid that if he did this, Wang Ling would directly expel him from the sect. Looking at this scene in front of him, Audiobook couldn't help sighing with emotion in his heart. This was truly a privilege. Anyone who saw it would be envious. Even his Shifu's wife had wanted to rub against him, but in the end, a child had beaten her to it. As Audiobook's chief disciple, it was only at this moment that Zhou Zi realized that this young man was the legendary little dragon king Muyu. He didn't dare look directly at the warm scene of the family reunion in the back of the van, but at the part of Wang Muyu's face he saw in the rearview mirror in the middle of the van. Even though he had only seen part of the face, Zhou Zi was utterly stunned, because this Wang Muyu really looked too much like his grandmaster Wang Ling. No wonder he had heard his Shifu say that his grandmaster had a headache over this matter. Looking at him now, Zhou Zi was instantly enlightened. Wang Muyu clearly wasn't his own child and wasn't even related by blood, but he had a very similar face to his. Who could explain this? He couldn't tell others that Wang Muyu was a branch disciple of the Dragon Clan, could he? After rubbing against him for a while, the little guy finally looked up at Wang Ling. Daddy, wasn't my performance good this time? He stared into Wang Ling's dead fish eyes. Not only wasn't there the slightest bit of fear, his eyes sparkled instead, as if he were begging for praise. Looking at this scene, Wang Ling was silent for a good while. Because of his clumsy tongue, he didn't know how to properly praise someone. Although he really wanted to praise Wang Muyu, at the same time he was afraid that if he did, this little guy would start to get carried away. Thus, after much consideration, he stretched out his hand and gently stroked the little fellow's head. After being touched by Wang Ling, Wang Muyu's heart burst with joy, as if he was happier than if he had been praised. He hugged Wang Ling's muscular waist tightly like a koala and refused to let go. In the end, it was Audiobook who came to the rescue and took the initiative to mediate with Wang Muyu. Little wooden fish, don't overdo it. I know, Wang Muyu said. No, I don't think you know at all. Audiobook dropped his forehead into his hand. Actually, from the perspective of our human genetic heritage, my Shifu Wang Ling isn't your father. I know. Hearing this, Wang Muyu nodded and said again. When he said this, everyone in the car was shocked. If you know, then why are you still blindly identifying him? Lotus Sun was horrified. I'm not blindly identifying him. Us dragons are born from eggs. No matter what our genes are, we only recognize the first person we see. Wang Muyu pursed his lips and teased. That Jingza also has a mother. He's the same as Ling Yu's mother. As everyone knew, Ling Yu was a space dragon who had been captured and had defected, and had originally been under Baijia's command. Since Wang Muyu said that Ling Yu and Jingza's mother were the same, in that case, it was highly possible that their mother, or rather, their parents were Baijia. Baijia had acted as both a father and a mother all by himself. But because of Ling Yu's uniqueness as a space dragon, Ling Yu's original body had become a stand-in during the battle, and the stand-in had taken the place of the original body, thus leading to his defection. So I'm the first person you see. It makes sense if you recognize me, but what does that have to do with classmate Wang Ling? Lotus Sun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It's true that the first person I saw after I broke out of my shell was my mother, but when my shell cracked open, all I saw was my father's face. Before Wang Muyu could finish speaking, Lotus Sun covered his mouth and choked him. He didn't know why she had covered his mouth. He was clearly telling the truth. But his mother's body temperature was visibly rising, and her face was very red. Audiobook chuckled and then looked at Wang Muyu with a helpless expression. That is to say, according to the rules of your dragon clan, no matter who laid the egg, the first person they see is your parents? Little wooden fish, don't you think this is a little too sloppy? Of course not. Wang Muyu smiled and threw himself into Wang Ling's arms again. My daddy is very awesome. How is it sloppy? Everyone. But Wang Muyu wasn't someone who didn't consider other people's feelings at all. Because of the cultural difference, he felt that if he used force, it might backfire. Thus, long before coming here to see Wang Ling and Lotus Sun, he had already prepared himself mentally. I know that Daddy and Mommy have headaches about me. But don't worry, Daddy and Mommy. I won't cause you any trouble. Wang Muyu looked at Wang Ling and said, From now on, I'll only call you Daddy and Mommy when we're alone. What about normal times? Just call them Big Brother and Big Sister. Wang Muyu laughed. Hearing this, Wang Ling and Lotus Sun were a little relieved. But this time, Wang Ling also realized a problem. His problem had been solved, yes. The real troublemaker might be Father Wang. If this little guy called him Big Brother, then Father Wang might really not be able to explain it to Mother Wang. When that time came, forget kneeling on a washboard. Mother Wang might directly ask him to borrow the heavenly Dao Durian. Meanwhile, in another van, after Jiang Yingying was rescued, she smoothly met up with Jiang Wuxing under battle sex arrangements. Immortal Toya had been sent to wait in the van early on. He knew that the person who had rescued Jiang Yingying this time was Lotus Sunday. With her around, Jiang Yingying would definitely be unscathed. In fact, the purpose of his trip wasn't to treat Jiang Yingying, but to cover for Lotus Sun and put Jiang Wuxing's mind at ease. After a symbolic examination of Zhang Yingying's injuries, Immortal Toya bowed to Zhang Wuxing. Don't worry, Martial Saint. I've already examined Miss Yingying. She isn't injured, and she's very healthy. This old Martial Saint heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at Zhang Yingying with a resolute expression. Don't worry, Yingying. Grandpa will definitely fight to the death with this unlucky Tengu, and catch them all in one fell swoop sooner or later. Of course. Grandpa will definitely do it. But I really have to thank Pretty Sister for coming out unscathed this time. Zhang Yingying smiled. Pretty Sister? Is she that young man from Battle Sect who helped you save? I don't know if he's young, but Pretty Sister is really amazing. 1 against 100. Superb swordsmanship. But she was wearing a 9-tailed fox mask, so I couldn't see her face clearly. She should be a very beautiful person, right? Said Zhang Yingying. Cave Immortal. May I ask where I can find her? Zhang Wuxing asked as he looked at Immortal Toya. In reply to Lord Martial Saint, I'll have to verify this matter, said Immortal Toya. You don't have to, Grandpa. Zhang Yingying shook her head and said, Pretty Sister left me her contact information. I'll call her later. She said she'd be nervous to see you, so if you want to thank her, I can bring her a gift. AI. This old man wanted to thank her in person. Hearing this, Zhang Wuxing nodded a little regretfully. But that's fine. Girls are more shy. If I go over in person, I might put a lot of pressure on her. Yingying, you must always remember that this Pretty Sister is your benefactor, understand? I know, Grandpa. Zhang Yingying replied solemnly. Also, Grandpa, it's about Silver Fox this time. I heard from Silver Fox himself that Tengu's people are all over the world, so it might not be safe for him to be locked up in prison. When he was subdued by Pretty Sister earlier, he said that Tengu's people would definitely get rid of him. This information is very useful. We'll be more careful on our side later. Hearing this, Zhang Wuxing nodded. In fact, Wuxia Alliance and Battle Sect had already found out that there was in fact a group of people among Tengu who weren't responsible for intelligence transmission and sharing. They were called Tengu Cleaners, and were the ones who specialized in cleaning up traces and getting rid of traitors. Silver Fox was very likely to be targeted by this group of people. Chapter 1763. It was Friday, January 2nd, New Year 4397. This was the third day since Zhang Yingying had been rescued. Wang Ling noticed that the amount of time she spent with him had plummeted recently. Every day, she would leave in a hurry after school. Furthermore, apart from reminding him via text to visit Wang Muyu, she hadn't mentioned anything else to him in the last few days. He remembered that she was always trying to find topics to talk about, just so that they could talk a little more. There were some exercises that she clearly knew how to do, but she would pretend that she didn't understand and ask him for help. Wang Ling was also an honest person. Even if he had already seen through her behavior, he didn't expose her to her face, and instead patiently took photos of his homework answers. Sometimes, he would even record a video of him solving a problem and send it to her. Wang Ling didn't have any other intention in doing this. As the saying went, reviewing the past is learning the new. Doing more exercises would help consolidate his memory and help him keep his grades down in exams. This was what Wang Ling usually did. And in a sense, this was also a way of urging him to study. Wang Ling didn't resent it. It was just helping her solve problems, which was as easy as lifting a finger. It was just that these days, Wang Ling noticed that Lotus Sun's mindset had started to change a little. She didn't ask him any more questions, which made Wang Ling feel like his life had instantly become a lot more leisurely. He felt that this could be considered a good thing. Because he was a lone wolf to begin with, he should feel very comfortable when no one harassed him. What was more, his life had always been like this for the past 17 years. But for some reason, after Lotus Sun had been contacting him less these past few days, he had a strange feeling. It was as if he was suddenly missing a piece of the puzzle, giving him an inexplicable feeling of emptiness that he didn't know whether it could be called empty or not. But when he calmed down and thought about it carefully, he felt that this was a little too exaggerated. It couldn't be. He had always been an emotionless person. How could he possibly feel this empty? He picked up his phone and stared blankly at Lotus Sun's message window for a long time. His fingers hovered over the 9-grid keyboard. After who knew how long, he typed 3 words. "What are you doing?" Then, he deleted all 3 words. He still couldn't send them. In that instant, Wang Ling suddenly felt that this wasn't like him. She didn't come to harass him, so he should feel very comfortable. Ding! At that moment, he suddenly received a new message, which made his phone vibrate. The person who sent him the message was Wang Muyu. He didn't know if this little guy really had a telepathic connection with him. He actually sent him the same message. Wang Ling stared blankly at the, "What are you doing?" on the screen for a long while, and finally sent an ellipsis. After getting the new phone and learning how to use it, Wang Muyu frantically texted Wang Ling after greeting him for a while. Wang Muyu gradually became familiar with his father's conversation. Generally speaking, his dad Wang Ling was the one listening, and wouldn't take the initiative to send a text message. In other words, under normal circumstances, the replies he received were ellipses. The ellipsis also meant that his father most likely agreed with his opinion. Text messages would only be sent if there was a clear rejection. "Come and see me tomorrow, Dad. Don't forget." Wang Muyu had just learned how to use a mobile phone, but his typing speed was very fast. Wang Ling. After the text message reminder ended, Wang Muyu, who had become a spy, quickly called Lotus Sunday. On the other end of the line, Lotus Sun sounded very embarrassed. "That Makujio, how did it go?" Mom, it's still the same. I wonder if the ellipsis is the only key on Dad's phone," Wang Muyu ridiculed, and Lotus Sun couldn't help laughing at his slightly childish voice. In fact, Lotus Sun had been having a hard time holding back these last few days. She had deliberately carried out the alienation plan, and had left with her bag as soon as school was over. Then, she had changed into a new set of clothes and put on the 9-tailed fox mask in a secluded place, and had arranged to meet Jiang Yingying as pretty sister at a cultivation training center the size of a football field. This cultivation training center was a property of Battle Sect, and had been jointly invested and established by Huaguo Water Curtain Group. There were no outsiders in the trial run. Lotus Sun had made some connections in advance, obtained a key to the cultivation training center, and trained with Jiang Yingying here. In the last few days, her relationship with Jiang Yingying had improved further. In fact, it was Jiang Yingying who had come up with the so-called alienation plan. She didn't know if it would work, but she had to try it as a last resort, and had planned to use it first. But now it looked like it wasn't very effective, which made Lotus Sun feel a little regretful. Pretty sister's boyfriend still hasn't responded? Jiang Yingying couldn't help asking as she wiped off her sweat. Not yet. Also, he's not my boyfriend yet. Lotus Sun replied a little disappointedly. She had never thought that she would be so muddle-headed as to believe Jiang Yingying and let her be her relationship consultant. Most importantly, Jiang Yingying actually didn't have much experience in love. Her so-called plans and routines had all come from romance novels, romance comics, and all kinds of romance TV dramas. Tons of lovers, stained romance, meteor garden, prank kick, etc. Lotus Sun had to admit that she was indeed a little anxious because there hadn't been any progress between her and Wang Ling. She had gone to Wang Ling every day to ask him questions in order to get closer to him. Although Wang Ling had ignored her at first, he had recently replied to her with some problem-solving videos. It was really good to publicize it, and it was worth it. It actually supported both Android and Apple phones. Wang Ling hadn't said or typed a single word during the whole process, and didn't even show his face in the videos he sent her, only filming the process of solving the problems with his bare hands. But just looking at Wang Ling's hands and his beautiful handwriting was a feast for her eyes. But now, she was carrying out the alienation plan. This time, she had nothing left to show for it. Pretty sister is so outstanding. You'll be one sooner or later. Jiang Yingying laughed. The more it's like this, the more you have to be patient. In TV dramas, when the male lead encounters the female lead suddenly ignoring him, it takes him a while to react. So, pretty sister, you just have to wait for this blockhead to throw himself at you. How long does it usually take? Lotus Sun asked with a frown. If it's a little slower, maybe a few weeks? Hearing this, the corners of Lotus Sun's mouth couldn't help twitching. A few weeks. Given this blockhead's ability to comprehend things, she felt that a few weeks wouldn't be enough. Maybe it would take several years, or even more than a decade. And whether she could persist in liking Wang Ling for that long was also a question worth considering. Chapter 1764. On Saturday, January 3rd, the morning news reported on the underground black intelligence industry chain. The news didn't mention Heavenly Dog at all, and was purely for show. It was a warning. But given the nature of Heavenly Dog and this gang, Wang Ling felt that they wouldn't cry until they saw the coffin, and it would be very difficult for news to scare them. Rather, it was Wuxia who had made a great contribution in the command operation a few days ago. Wang Ling had already asked grenade-throwing Senior Immortal to issue sect leader secret order so that Battle Sect could unify their words and push all the credit to Wuxia once again. For example, in this operation, one had worn a raccoon mask and the other had worn a nine-tailed fox mask. These two Battle Sect youngsters whom Jiang Wuxing regarded as having great potential had smoothly completed their missions under Wuxia's outstanding command. By using Wuxia, Wang Ling had completely removed himself from the picture. It was just that Wang Muyu's quick-witted decision to drive Battle Saint away back then had only been a temporary solution. Wang Ling heard that Jiang Wuxing was still thinking of ways to find out more about him. So in the end, he had to think of a way to stop this matter. Wang Ling felt that these old grandpas of the 10 generals weren't easy to deal with. In addition, Wang Ling also felt that Heavenly Dog couldn't be delayed any longer. The other party had gone after Lotus Sun earlier, but had mistakenly captured Jiang Yingying. Wang Ling had already guessed the reason behind this when he had first learned that Jiang Yingying had been mistakenly captured. Heavenly Dog probably had information on Wang Muyu, which was why it had captured Lotus Sun to verify it. In other words, that group of people had information on Wang Muyu. If Wang Muyu's information was made public, it would be troublesome. Thus, Wang Ling felt that this underground intelligence organization couldn't remain. It had to be uprooted in the shortest amount of time possible. This time, it was very rare for him to take the initiative to send grenade-throwing Senior Immortal a text message. There were only 3 words in the message: Heavenly Dog, destroy. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was well aware of the importance of this matter, so he immediately replied, "Brother Ling, don't worry, I've already made full preparations. I believe we'll have a result soon. Brother Ling, please take care of the baby and wait for the good news." Seeing this reply, Wang Ling almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Take care of the baby and wait for the good news. Speaking of which, he was indeed going to meet Wang Muyu today. At first, Wang Ling had actually been very reluctant to interact with this little guy, mainly because he felt that it was impossible for him to have anything in common with such a child. But when he found out that Wang Muyu had also become infatuated with the taste of crispy noodle snacks, he was immediately reassured. Wang Ling even felt that in some sense, Wang Muyu was indeed a talent with potential. With a little bit of nurturing, he might still have a bright future. Annihilation Tengu. When grenade-throwing Senior Immortal received Wang Ling's instructions, he was filled with awe. As far as he could remember, Wang Ling had very rarely taken the initiative to assign him any major tasks. Even if he had sent him a text message or called him, they were all unimportant and harmless matters. As for Heavenly Dog, the allied forces formed by Wuxia Alliance and the various sub-alliances had been keeping an eye on it for a long time. It was just that Heavenly Dog's members were numerous and scattered, so they hadn't been able to launch an effective attack. It was easy to catch 1 or 2 Tengu, but it was difficult to catch all of them in one go. I know this is very difficult, but even if it is, we must do it. In the true venerated Great Hall, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal started to come up with a plan to catch all of Heavenly Dog in one fell swoop. All of Battle Sect's core members were present, either in person or through remote projections. Battle Sect's intelligence team was currently being run by the Lord and Lady of Mo Immortal Castle, under the supervision of many founding elders. Before Mo Immortal Castle had been incorporated into Battle Sect, it had been a well-matched opponent of Heavenly Dog's Xiao Tian Alliance in terms of intelligence. Thus, the Lord and Lady of the castle had a certain amount of information on Heavenly Dog. At the meeting, the Lord stepped forward and bowed to the founding elders before saying, "Elders, I have dealt with Heavenly Dog before. In fact, when Miss Jiang Yingying was mistakenly captured this time, I was ordered by Senior Immortal to secretly send people to investigate. Have you heard of a man in Duobao City whose code name is Skunk?" "I know. Isn't he a very famous information trafficker?" Lightning Dharmaraja said, "This person isn't just famous in Duobao City's underground intelligence market. He's also a little famous in other intelligence markets. This person was actually a former subordinate of Mo Immortal Castle." At that moment, the Lord of the Castle bowed and said, But Skunk had already met with misfortune when Mo Immortal Castle incorporated him. Now that I think about it carefully, it was probably Heavenly Dog's group who did it. Skunk is dead? Then who was that skunk-masked man who appeared in Duobao City? At that moment, many of the elders present had astonished expressions on their faces. Well, the lord of the castle kept them in suspense and smiled slightly. Senior who played Skunk, please come forward and explain yourself. The next second, Qin Zong, who had been listening with his arms crossed, suddenly stepped forward. Mr. Qin, it's you? Xilian Zhenren raised her eyebrows and was also extremely delighted. As soon as Qin Zong stepped forward, everyone instantly understood what was going on. Everyone knew that Qin Zong and Xiang Yi were Battle Sect's two new guest elders, but they had suddenly disappeared during this period of time. It seemed that they had already accepted a new mission and were secretly preparing for this matter. Senior Immortal, are you saying that you've already started making arrangements? Asked Immortal Toya. I can't say that it was for this matter. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal shook his head with a wry smile. I asked Brother Qin to disguise himself as Skunk for another mission. Who would have thought that an unintentional action would instead lead to such a major incident? So, Mr. Qin is playing the skunk, but where is Mr. Xiang? He's also a skunk. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled and said, I had Brother Qin and Brother Xiang wear skunk masks and appear in all the major intelligence markets in the country in order to test Heavenly Dog's movements. If Heavenly Dog finds out that Skunk isn't dead, it will definitely send a new Heavenly Dog cleaner to attack the person wearing the skunk mask. That's right. The Lord of the Castle nodded and continued. Before the real Skunk died, he was already quite strong. Thus, the Heavenly Dog cleaner who killed him back then was a fourth-class Heavenly Dog. Now that Heavenly Dog knows that Skunk isn't dead, it will send someone to kill him. That Heavenly Dog cleaner must be at least 5th class or above. This time, it's all thanks to Mr. Qin and Mr. Xiang that we were able to lure the snake out of its hole in a short period of time and capture 2 Heavenly Dogs above the 5th stage alive. Although they weren't specialized in intelligence work, they were just scavengers in the Heavenly Dog formation. Although they're just Heavenly Dog cleansers, they know a lot of things. Based on the analysis of their memories so far, we've obtained 2 pieces of the latest information. Mishio's Griot City. Griot City. Audiobook frowned. I remember that it's one of the most prosperous cities in Mishio. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded and said, both of them have fragmented memories of Griot City, although I haven't completely analyzed them yet. Although we haven't fully analyzed them yet, it's not difficult to determine that Griot City is related to Heavenly Dog's lair. Then, what's the second key piece of information? Asked Audiobook. The second. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal paused for a moment before he replied. As for the second piece of information, it's Number 60 High School. Number 60. Number 60 High School? Audiobook and everyone present was stunned. Although Miss Jiang was caught by mistake, Heavenly Dog seems to be very dissatisfied with our battle sect secretly sending someone to rescue her. And now, Miss Jiang Yingying is studying at number 60 High School. So no. 60 High School may be the next target of the Heavenly Dog cleaner, said Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help twitching their lips. The current number 60 High School was completely different from the one when Shadow Stream had attacked. Even without Wang Ling around. Feng Xing, Immortal Zhenyuan, Wang Zhan, Lu Qingyi, Gu Xuanji. Just these hidden experts who were elders of Battle Sect were now students inside. In addition, there was Lotus Sun, who had obtained the 9 cores of the Mysterious Sea, and Death Heavenly Dao, who was the head of security at the entrance. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal thought about it all night, but still couldn't figure out why this Heavenly Dog cleaner had dared to do this. Some villains. They were clearly so ordinary, but so confident. Chapter 1765. At noon that day, Father and Mother Wang saw that Wang Ling, for the first time, hadn't chosen to stay at home and study while eating crispy noodle snacks. Instead, he had changed into clean sportswear and was ready to go out. Normally, the couple wouldn't find it strange if they went out to do something, but for some reason today, Father and Mother Wang had the same feeling. That was, there was something very wrong with Wang Ling. Do you think Ling Ling has a girlfriend? On the sofa, seeing Wang Ling put on his shoes at the entrance, Mother Wang couldn't help elbowing Father Wang next to her as she hugged Wang Nuan. Father Wang quietly put down the newspaper with 2 holes in it, his heart full of doubts. No way. Our son is finally going to blossom? He felt that at Wang Ling's age, it was very normal for him to like someone or be liked by someone. It was the first awakening of love for young people, and feelings came easily when they weren't that mature. What was more, that Miss Sun of Huaguo Water Curtain Group was bombarded with sugar-coated bullets. Father Wang felt that he probably wouldn't have been able to withstand it if it had been him. The couple stared at Wang Ling's back as he changed his shoes for a long time, and as their minds filled in the blanks, their gossipy hearts couldn't help burning. It wasn't until Wang Ling chose to close the door that Father Wang got up and carefully tucked An Wan into his broad and warm arms. How about this? You stay at home and look after An Wan. I'll go take a look. Father Wang was speechless in his heart. A woman's gossipy nature could sometimes be very scary when it was aroused. Those unscrupulous reporters in the entertainment industry had been scolded every day, but they still went to collect gossip about celebrities regardless of the weather. In the end, it was because there was a market demand. Since there was demand, it meant that there was money to be made. Father Wang felt that this was a bad trend and should be resisted. In the end, Mother Wang just rolled her eyes at him, and he immediately shriveled up. What do you know? We're just concerned about Ling Ling, so he doesn't go astray. Young people's relationships were all temporary and unreliable. By the way, what if the person he likes isn't Lotus' son? Father Wang was silent. As expected, the latter half of the sentence was the main point. God. What if the person you like isn't Miss Lotus' son? So you've already decided. Women are really easy to bribe. Isn't it just some high-end beauty products every month? Is there a need for that? That little girl was only about the same age as Wang Ling. How would she know what real feelings were? This was what Father Wang thought in his heart, but it seemed that Mother Wang could always see through his little thoughts. She chuckled. Do you know the person who topped your reader's donation list? Are you talking about that swordswoman Furong? Father Wang immediately gave out the reader's ID. This was the #1 reader who had been tipping the list for 3 months in a row. In just one day, he had tipped more than the total amount that Audiobook, who had used the ID, super high school level deputy director, had given him back then. In fact, Father Wang had always wanted to find an opportunity to get to know this nouveau riche reader, but heroine Hibiscus was too mysterious. Apart from sending him gifts and finding all kinds of opportunities to dominate the rankings, she didn't join any reader groups, nor did she say a word in the comments section. Do you know this swordswoman Furong? Father Wang raised his eyebrows as he looked at Mother Wang, who was changing her clothes. It said that pregnancy makes you stupid for 3 years. Why do I feel that it's not me who's stupid, but you? Isn't that wrong? Mother Wang laughed. Hearing this, Father Wang's expression instantly changed, and he looked at Mother Wang with an incomparably resolute gaze. All right, dear, I support you in everything you do. Mother Wang chuckled. Men were really easy to bribe. By the way, Ling Ling has already left. How are you going to catch up? Lord Ma can take me there. I'll have Lord Ma cover for me in passing, and I'm sure there won't be any problems. Not long after Wang Ling left, he had already sensed that he was being watched. Furthermore, the person who was watching him was his mother. Of course, he also understood that Lord Ma, who was caught in the middle, was also very uncomfortable. On one side was the immortal king, and on the other side was the immortal king's mother. Neither side was easy to offend, and Lord Ma naturally had no choice but to obey Mother Wang's instructions. He was helpless, but there was nothing else he could do now. Since Mother Wang was following him, he could only ask Makujio to change his appearance, so that when Mother Wang saw that Makujio looked exactly like him, he wouldn't be able to explain himself. Wang Ling and Wang Muyu had agreed to meet at Daybuk Cafe in Yida Square in the city center today. The little guy was quite obedient, and after seeing Wang Ling's text message, he took the initiative to change his appearance to a chubby one. It was just that this change was different from the last time in Duobao City. He didn't grow taller, and instead of having the greasy appearance of a fat otaku, he had become a little cute little fatty. His facial features were a little similar to Wang Ling's, but because he had become fatter, it was hard to tell if you didn't look closely. Dad, brother. As soon as they met, the little guy almost blurted out in excitement, making Wang Ling nervous. Fortunately, he managed to restrain himself in the end. They had agreed beforehand that he wasn't allowed to call Wang Ling Dad in front of outsiders. Wang Muyu hadn't deliberately disobeyed this rule. He had just been too happy to see Wang Ling. Because this was the first time Wang Ling had asked him out to experience the cultivation life of modern society with him. Excluding that time when he had sneaked out to Duobao City, it seemed that his whole world had been Huaguo Water Curtain Group's unchanging science and technology park. There was everything inside, but for some reason, when he strolled around, he felt that it lacked a little of the world's bustling atmosphere. When the employees in the park saw him, they all greeted him with smiles and were all very polite. No matter how mischievous he was, they always had that professional smile on their faces, which often made Wang Muyu feel like he was locked in a preset world. Now that he was out with Wang Ling, this feeling was instantly dispelled. Furthermore, he and Wang Ling now had a common hobby, and that was that he was also one of the crazies for crispy noodle snacks. At first, Wang Muyu had to admit that he actually didn't like the snacks of the human world. If he hadn't heard that Wang Ling liked crispy noodle snacks, he probably wouldn't have touched food that reeked of pepper. It was precisely because he wanted to understand Wang Ling that he made up his mind to give it a try. In the end, he realized that it was very addictive. Furthermore, he realized that all the snacks in the human world seemed to make him very addicted. It wasn't just crispy noodle snacks. He could also accept potato chips, spicy strips and so on. This was a thigh. The revival of the Dragon Clan. Actually, Wang Muyu had thought this through very clearly from the very beginning. It would probably be very difficult for him to do it alone. It would be better for him to tightly hug the thigh in front of him. He was actually very open-minded. More open-minded than all the members of the Dragon Clan. If he could beat them, he would fight. If he couldn't beat them, he would join them. Chapter 1766. Of course, Wang Muyu's decision to do so wasn't because he had just hatched. Although he had said that he was Wang Ling's father, when he had first hatched, he had known nothing about his daddy's strength. It wasn't until he had seen the scene of Wang Ling hammering Clean Zay that he had immediately made up his mind to hug Wang Ling tightly. In the past, glory and self-respect were things that couldn't be given up on for the Dragon Clan. As an outstanding dragon warrior, it was impossible for him to yield to others. But Wang Muyu's way of thinking was naturally different. Maybe it was because he had gathered too many dragon genes that his brain circuitry had been a little strange from the start. Glory and self-respect didn't exist. Glory was precious, but self-respect was even more valuable. As long as you hugged the leg tightly, you could abandon both. This was a little poem that Wang Muyu had casually composed while he and Old Man Sun had been learning about the culture of the human world over the past few days. As a member of the Dragon Clan, he knew that he probably shouldn't be so close to human cultivators. But he wasn't completely a dragon now, and was a little dragon person with dragon genes as well as some human attributes. Wang Muyu realized that he really loved life in the human cultivation world, especially when he was with Wang Ling or Lotus Sun. He didn't feel lonely at all. Wang Ling and Wang Muyu had decided from the start that they would go to the arcade city in the square. Bro, let's go play this. This is fun. Lots of points. We can switch to crispy noodle snacks. Bro, that punching machine looks pretty good, but it's not strong enough. If I hit it with half my strength, will it break? Wang Muyu grabbed Wang Ling's hand excitedly as he talked and bounced along the way, looking completely like a child. There were a lot of games in the arcade city, and in order to earn points, Wang Ling's specialty had been the gold coin bulldozer. Of course, in order to cheat players of their game coins, the arcade city actually had a lot of games that involved luck, such as the gold coin bulldozer. This time, who knew if it was because Wang Muyu's excitement had infected him, but Wang Ling brought him to a brand new game console. The name of this game machine was Dongfeng Express. The general rule was that every round, players could exchange one game coin for a chance to fire a cannonball. The cannonball would fall from the sky. On the bottom of the game machine, there were a lot of holes and obstacles that were marked with a number of points. When the wheel spins, it proves that the game has begun. Wang Ling pressed the button to launch the cannonball, and in the end, the position of the ball in the pit would determine how many points he had won. The first prize was 1,000 points. If one could continuously hit a hole worth more than 600 points, there would be a bonus reward, up to 100 times the base of the first prize. However, this difficulty factor was extremely high. Since the opening of the game hall, no one had ever succeeded. However, the size of the hole was about the same as the diameter of the ball, so the ball had to be accurately aimed at the hole. If it was slightly off, the ball would bounce out. Wang Ling bought Wang Muyu an ice cream so that he could eat it while he watched Wang Ling perform. Wang Muyu originally didn't think much of this kind of game that involved luck. Before he officially started, Wang Ling took out the raccoon mask and put it on. He knew that the performance would definitely be too eye-catching, so he had to disguise himself. He had already enchanted the mask, so it was impossible for anyone to see his true appearance through the mask with their power of sight. "Daddy, you can do it!" Wang Muyu looked like he was watching a show as he obediently sat next to Wang Ling and cheered him on telepathically as he ate his ice cream. Who would have thought that Wang Ling wasn't just invincible at fighting, he was also invincible at video games. His cannonball was extremely accurate, and each shot was worth 1,000 points. In less than 10 minutes, he had earned 10 million points, directly emptying the machine of the lottery tickets which had been used to accumulate points. Halfway through, the staff came to open the boxes and renew the tickets twice. In the end, they simply wiped their sweat and stood next to Wang Ling to watch him perform. After another 15 minutes or so, this video arcade little brother wiped his sweat and looked at Wang Ling. "Bro, how about I clear your points and give you the tickets? Otherwise you'll be tired, and I'll be tired too." Wang Ling. Wang Ling, Wang Ling. In less than half an hour, Wang Ling had already earned almost 100 million points with the game coins he had. The lottery tickets at his feet had piled up into small mountains, attracting the attention of many people at the scene. Even Wang Muyu was stupefied as he stared blankly. All his attention was focused on Wang Ling, and his admiration for him grew. He completely didn't notice that the ice cream in his hand had melted and fallen to the ground with a plop. "This person is so amazing. Quick, go and find out where he came from. My prizes." In the end, the huge commotion caused by Wang Ling's side alarmed the video arcade manager, who came over with his heart bleeding. With so many points, he could practically clear out all the prizes in the arcade in one go. The most important thing was that the manager learned that Wang Ling actually hadn't used his money to exchange for game coins at all, but had directly used his game arcade membership card. Speaking of which, Wang Ling had obtained this game arcade membership card when he had visited Lotus Sun back then. When Wang Ling inserted his membership card into the point accumulator to redeem his points, his member ID was immediately displayed. The two big words, "Ah gone," were like a golden legend that had suddenly appeared, directly blinding everyone. "Ah gone. Oh my god, he's ah gone. The #1 demon who emptied out the arcade. My god. So this person is ah gone, he's too strong." Wang Ling had left behind this name when he had visited Lotus Sun more than a month ago. In fact, even Wang Ling himself hadn't expected the ID he had left behind to not only become a legend, but also so influential. Contrary to Wang Ling's expectations, the video arcade manager, who had looked like his heart was dripping blood before seeing the ID, instead had a pleasantly surprised expression on his face. "Sir, may I ask what prize you would like to exchange for?" He greeted the manager with a wide smile, bewildering the employees around him. What's wrong with the manager? It feels like his attitude has suddenly changed. What do you know? This Agon isn't just a legend. Furthermore, he seems to have something to do with the big boss behind us. He's a Crown Diamond member, so he can exchange for things that aren't available in the store. Crown Diamond member? And this thing, why haven't I heard of it? In fact, even Wang Ling himself didn't know he actually had this identity. But since Lotus Sun had given him this card, it was most likely her side who had arranged for it. Under the raccoon mask, Wang Ling broke out in a sweat. He then opened the redemption page for the points redemption machine, and sure enough, there were a lot of things that weren't available in the arcade. Holy shit! This is the first time I've heard that you can exchange houses when you play video games. When the onlookers saw the top garden bungalow in the city center on the redemption page, which was worth 100 million points, they all cried out in surprise. Furthermore, there was a special note under this prize. It read, "This is a garden bungalow in the city center worth 100 million points. If you move in with your fiancé surnamed Sun, born in 4380, you can enjoy even more benefits." Wang Ling realized that Old Man Sun had clearly arranged everything for him. Chapter 1767. Driven by the capitalist economy of modern cultivation society, the high-priced real estate industry chain, almost all cultivators had become mortgage slaves who were tied up with huge mortgages. Although the space expansion technology could expand the usable area of the house, not everyone could afford this technology. Wool came from the sheep's back, and in the end, the people who benefited the most were always the top group of cultivators. So when the option to exchange video game points for real estate came out, Wang Ling could instantly sense the envious, jealous, and hateful gazes of the onlookers around him. Wang Ling wasn't interested in real estate. No matter how big a house was, if it wasn't rich in spirit and culture, it would just be an endless emptiness that couldn't be filled. Thus, he chose to directly skip this option, and in the end, his gaze fell on the special snack voucher worth 10 million points. He had 100 million points, which was just enough to exchange for 10 of them. World Snack Voucher. After seeing Wang Ling choose this option, the people around him felt their hearts bleed. He didn't want a good house, but actually wanted to exchange it for snacks. Was this a gone guru a spoiled brat? But then again, a guru's way of thinking was peculiar to begin with, and normal people couldn't fathom it. After seeing Wang Ling's choice, the crowd around him had disappointed expressions on their faces, and then dispersed. Only Wang Muyu looked at Wang Ling with adoration in his eyes. "Boss, how do we use this voucher?" After Wang Ling took out the World Snack Voucher, Wang Muyu smiled innocently and adorably at the video game hall. The manager bent down and explained patiently, "It's like this, Godgone and Godgone's little brother. It's a little troublesome to use the snack voucher in this world. Have you seen the flag on the snack coupon? Each flag corresponds to a country, and the World Snack Coupon is equivalent to a VIP card for snacks. As long as you go to that country with the corresponding national flag voucher, you can use this voucher to exchange for snacks worth 100,000 yuan at any large supermarket. There's no limit to the number of times you can exchange it, and it will stop when the quota is used up. It's just that it's particularly troublesome to use. You have to run over and exchange it yourself. But it would be troublesome to go abroad now. You also have to go through all kinds of procedures to prove it." Speaking up to this point, the manager looked at Wang Ling mysteriously and said, "So I suggest that Godgone consider acting as if nothing happened. We'll give you back your points and you can choose again?" Obviously, this manager was also on elder son's side. Wang Ling stared at the World Snack coupons in his hand and finally shook his head. As for the round-trip tickets, he didn't need it, because he could teleport. "Brother, are we really going?" After taking away the World Snack coupon, Wang Muyu's expression became even more excited. Not only had he come out this time, he could actually go abroad with Wang Ling. This was basically a travel adventure. Looking at Wang Muyu's excited expression, Wang Ling nodded helplessly. In any case, he was just going to exchange for snacks. It wouldn't be long before he came back. Very quickly, he drew out his first global snack voucher and chose his first stop, Mishio Nation's Glio City. After confirming that there was no one around, he put his hand on Wang Muyu's shoulder. "Daddy, it's all right. It's just teleportation. I can keep up with you." Wang Muyu transmitted his voiceover with an innocent smile. Wang Ling had almost forgotten that Wang Muyu was a capable little dragon person. He had originally thought that bringing Wang Muyu out to play would be a very difficult task. In the end, the little guy was much more obedient than he had imagined. He was so sensible that he couldn't find any excuse to dislike him. So in the end, Wang Ling let go of his hand on Wang Muyu's shoulder. He knew. The little guy wanted to show off in front of him. He had to give the little guy a chance to show off. At the same time, Mother Wang, who was hiding in the next cubicle, still couldn't stop herself from gossiping. She knew that Wang Ling was definitely going to go abroad to exchange for snacks, and for a moment, she was a little hesitant about whether or not she should follow him. "May I ask if your Highness Numinous Mother with the axe still wants to follow them?" Lord Ma asked in a very low voice. "Let's go home." Mother Wang frowned, because she had already taken a photo of Wang Muyu. But it wasn't Wang Muyu's original appearance, but the way he had deliberately become fat. Mother Wang felt that he looked vaguely familiar, but she couldn't put her finger on what was wrong. Glio City, Mishio Nation. When Wang Muyu teleported over, he saw a bustling street full of foreigners with blonde hair and blue eyes. He realized that Wang Ling wasn't next to him, but his aura was very close and not far away. This made Wang Muyu feel a little disappointed. He had thought that he would be able to keep up with Wang Ling more accurately so that Wang Ling could praise him. Who would have thought that he would fail at this critical moment? In fact, when it came to teleporting coordinates, there would indeed be some deviation the first few times you used the space teleportation ability. This was also very normal. Take Wang Ling for example. He had deviated several times when he was little, so it wasn't strange at all. The little guy had been with old man's son for the past few days, and had been picked up and dropped off by his personal ride wherever he went. He rarely used the space teleportation ability, so it was normal that he wasn't familiar with it. When Wang Ling landed, he realized that Wang Muyu wasn't next to him. Fortunately, he hadn't actually deviated too far, and as long as he followed his aura, he would be able to catch up very quickly. In a dark alley, Wang Ling accurately tracked Wang Muyu's aura with his hands in his trouser pockets. Just as he was about to follow him, he suddenly realized that Wang Muyu had started to move in the opposite direction from him. Wang Ling instantly frowned. It seemed that someone was chasing Wang Muyu. As soon as he landed, Wang Muyu sensed that someone was watching him. At that moment, Wang Muyu's sensitive senses were infinitely magnified by that malicious intent. To prevent himself from suddenly teleporting into a crowd and being discovered, Wang Muyu had specially used his invisibility ability as a defense, and only removed it when he was in a hidden position. It was just that he hadn't expected that just as he was about to meet up with Wang Ling, someone inexplicably would be watching him. Wang Muyu grit his teeth. This was the first time he had faced this kind of challenge alone. He had just failed to teleport, and needed another chance to show off in front of Wang Ling so that he could be praised. Thus, the blood in the little guy's body boiled in that instant, and he didn't know whether it was out of nervousness or anticipation. The streets in foreign countries were completely different from those in China. White tiled roads and foreign-style houses outlined crisscrossing alleys. Without hesitation, Wang Muyu plunged headlong into one of the alleys, and the villain who was following closely behind him abruptly gave chase. This person's battle strength was mediocre, so Wang Muyu naturally wasn't afraid of him. However, making a public move on the street would cause a commotion, so Wang Muyu wanted to find a secluded place to lure the villain in before killing him. Chapter 1768. Two figures flew past one after another in an alley surrounded by rows of garden houses. Wang Muyu randomly picked up two pebbles from the ground, and as he retreated, he made a symbolic counterattack. He didn't use too much force, and just casually flicked the pebbles in his hand. The flying speed of the pebble was astonishing. This projectile was even more powerful than a bullet. A pebble could even seriously injure a soul formation cultivator. However, the newcomer reacted very quickly, and accurately dodged the pebbles. In the end, the pebbles smashed into a tile wall with two loud booms. Two huge holes instantly appeared in the wall, and it collapsed on the spot, while the entire house looked like it was on the verge of collapse. Wang Muyu gritted his teeth. He hadn't expected his casual attack to cause such a ruckus. He was a little dragon man, not a husky. He shouldn't be the one to tear down a house, which would only cause trouble for him. At this thought, Wang Muyu had no choice but to turn back. He used the dragon strength gene of the restoration dragon to repair the broken wall, and then used the space dragon's teleportation ability to escape. Wang Muyu was about to continue his plan of luring the enemy into a trap, when the man suddenly stopped and stopped chasing him. When he turned his head, Wang Muyu saw a sly smile on that man's face. This man in a black fedora hat and a black trench coat had actually stopped in front of a certain building, and then started to punch the wall with his fist. Bastard! Wang Muyu had no choice but to quickly turn around and repair the damaged building. However, the man was still relentless, and continued with the next round of destruction. Wang Muyu was well aware that this man was deliberately stalling him. Gritting his teeth, he decided not to continue luring the man over. This man was a lunatic, and he had to end this quickly, otherwise the commotion here would only get worse. As sirens gradually rang out in the distance, Wang Muyu knew that someone had probably been affected and had called the police. He had to resolve the situation in front of him as soon as possible. However, the alley in front of him was too eye-catching. If he made a move here, he would definitely be seen by many people. Even if he used spatial magic to separate the man from himself, the scene of him and the man disappearing into thin air would be recorded by the surveillance cameras nearby. Wang Muyu did not want to become famous overseas, so after weighing the pros and cons, he chose a long-range killing method. In the next second, a strange ripple was released from his pupils, gradually releasing little ripples. The man looked at Wang Muyu calmly. In the next second, he saw the 2 street lamps beside him twist like water snakes as if they had been given a life of their own. They suddenly wrapped around his body tightly. This was the magnetite gold dragon's giant dragon power. It allowed Wang Muyu to control all metallic objects and give them a certain amount of power, turning them into steel spirit beasts that he could control. This man clearly did not expect that the 2 street lamps beside him could also become a great killing weapon at this moment. They suddenly wrapped around his body tightly, causing his muscles to be squeezed together and almost instantly deformed. He could feel several tendons and blood vessels in his body being crushed, and the blockage of blood in them gradually caused him to lose consciousness. However, Wang Muyu discovered that not only was there no fear or panic on this man's face, but he was even smiling. His smile was extremely mysterious. Scarlet blood seeped out from the gaps between his teeth, and he spat it out in large mouthfuls, flowing on the ground. Something was strange. Wang Muyu frowned. He instinctively felt that something was wrong, but he just couldn't tell what it was. This man had chased him all the way and provoked him. He clearly knew that he was far weaker than him, but he still wanted to drag him into a fight. It was as if he wanted to deliberately chase after him, provoke him, and provoke him. Then, as if he wanted to kill him with his own hands. Wang Muyu, your real father is waiting for you. Just as the man's consciousness was about to completely disappear, a strange and hollow voice came from his body. Wang Muyu wasn't sure if it was the man who had spoken, but he could see that the man's gaze on him was like that of a venomous snake, fierce and ferocious. His real father? No, what real father? His father was clearly only Wang Ling. It turned out that this guy was here to sow discord between father and son. This provoked Wang Muyu. Just as he was about to clench his fists and manipulate the magnetite gold dragon to use the steel water snakes formed from the street lamps to completely crush the man, Wang Ling flew past him. He grabbed the child by the collar and left, instantly teleporting to the bottom of a slide in a nearby park. There was a small square space there, and no one else was there at the moment. In fact, in that instant, he had done a lot of things. He hadn't just taken Wang Muyu away. He had also nullified the 2 steel water snakes and restored them to their original forms. At the same time, he had completely restored the nearby buildings, as well as helped that innocent foreign man, who had clearly been remotely manipulated by an evil force, recover from his injuries. Finally, he had used spirit energy waves to erase the memories of all the passers-by in the area as well as the nearby surveillance equipment. The only ones who hadn't been dealt with properly were the police who had rushed over from afar. But even if the police arrived at the scene now, it would be of no use, because the memories of those witnesses had been wiped clean, and they wouldn't be able to get anything out of them. In comparison, Wang Ling felt that the more important task at hand was to comfort Wang Muyu. This little guy was obviously frightened, and his whole body was trembling. Wang Muyu was clearly very strong, but in that battle just now, he had still seemed a little too young. He had been lacking in detail, and hadn't been able to capture that the man was in fact an innocent man who had been manipulated by an evil force from a distance, and had almost been crushed. Wang Ling felt lucky that he had arrived in time to prevent this little guy from falling into the enemy's evil plot and becoming a murderer. Looking at the trembling Wang Muyu in front of him, he didn't know how to comfort him. He had never comforted anyone before. So Wang Ling just walked over and hugged him gently. Smelling the familiar scent on Wang Ling, Wang Muyu gradually calmed down. Dad? Wang Muyu thought he was very strong, but what had happened just now made him feel for the first time that he was really useless. He hadn't even been able to see through the enemy's trick. Blaming himself endlessly, he buried his head in Wang Ling's shoulder and sobbed. In a split second, Wang Ling felt his shoulder become wet. Chapter 1769. Through the mind-reading ability, Wang Ling knew that the little guy was blaming himself, and it wasn't just because he had been frightened. Although Wang Muyu was very strong, his lack of combat experience was still a shortcoming, which was very difficult to accumulate in a short period of time. He had wanted to show off, but in the end, he had made a fool of himself in front of Wang Ling. After crying on Wang Ling's shoulder for a while, Wang Muyu suddenly felt a deep sense of shame. He had wanted to show off and have Wang Ling praise him, but not only had he failed, he had even cried on his father's shoulder. After coming back to his senses, Wang Muyu's little face instantly turned red, and he couldn't even maintain his form as he changed back into Wang Ling's original face. He was so ashamed that he almost wanted to dig a hole and bury himself in it like an ostrich. Wang Ling looked at this face that looked like it had been carved out of a template, and he instantly began to doubt life. To be honest, he had never shed a single tear since he was a child. After all, whenever he made a move, it was always him who made people cry. Furthermore, when he faced Wang Ling, he felt that those who could cry after being beaten by him were already considered lucky. Some people didn't even have time to cry, and he even had to think of a way to clean up after them by resurrecting them on the spot. So when he saw Wang Muyu's teary eyes, it was as if he was looking at his younger self, and it was a magical feeling. "Dad, I didn't do it on purpose. I'll change back right away." Wang Muyu looked at Wang Ling nervously. Wang Ling shook his head and rubbed the little guy's head. What Wang Muyu needed to do now was relax. If he continued to change his form, it would indeed be easy for him to get nervous. Of course, the most important thing was that they were now abroad, and didn't have to worry about running into familiar people here. Thus, Wang Ling felt that there was no need for Wang Muyu to keep changing his form while they were abroad. They rested patiently at the bottom of the slide for a while until Wang Muyu had completely calmed down. Wang Ling then took Wang Muyu's little hand with the world snack coupon in hand as they headed to the large supermarket in Mishio's Glio City. Wall Wolf. At the entrance, Wang Ling noticed a line of text scrolling on the supermarket's electronic bulletin board. "Today, no one knows crispy noodle snacks better than I do. The big gift pack of crispy noodle snacks has been sold out. Please snap it up tomorrow." As soon as this string of text appeared, Wang Ling's gaze was directly drawn to it. "No one knows better than me. Crispy noodle snack series?" Wang Ling refused to accept this. Because he truly felt that there was no one in this world who understood crispy noodle snacks better than him. He was itching to buy this crispy noodle snack. He had already sent clones to carry out missions for crispy noodle snacks in other countries, but his main body had come to Mishio Nation's Glio City in person. So when he saw this string of text, a new idea suddenly sprouted in his mind. Since it was Saturday, he felt that it wasn't a bad idea to spend a night in Glio with Wang Muyu. Elsewhere, Lotus Sun very quickly received information that Wang Ling and Wang Muyu were going to spend the night in Mishio Nation's Glio City. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had told her this when he had come to discuss it with her. After all, Wang Ling and Wang Muyu didn't have any information on how to enter the country. Both of them had teleported over, and couldn't find a regular hotel to stay in, so they could only ask Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal for help. However, even though Battlesect was expanding their business overseas, Battlesect's business in Glio City was still at zero. "AI, this blockhead. Why didn't he come to me directly?" After hearing the news, Lotus Sun couldn't help sighing in her heart. Currently, Battlesect doesn't have a map of Glio City yet, so I wanted to ask Huagua Water Curtain Group if it's possible. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked as he wiped at his sweat. "Of course it's possible, no problem. Wang Ling and Wooden Fish's business is my business." Lotus Sun laughed brightly. As expected of Huagua Water Curtain Group, they even have businesses in Glio City. "That's not it." Holding her phone, Lotus Sun shook her head and said, "Senior Immortal, you might not know, but while our Huagua Water Curtain Group also has business plans in Mishio Nation, our core area isn't in Glio City. It's somewhere else." "Then why is Miss wrong? Although we don't have it, we can still buy it." Lotus Sun said, "I'll have my grandfather buy the hotel chain over there. It'll be convenient for Wang Ling and Wooden Fish to stay there." Hearing this, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal swallowed. Sure enough, rich people were inhumane. After the call, Lotus Sun immediately arranged for the purchase of the hotel chain. In fact, Glio City had long since been included in Huagua Water Curtain Group's grand strategy for future territorial expansion. It was just that the plan had been brought forward. Compared with Huagua Water Curtain Group's acquisition of shares in a few insignificant hotel chains, this bit of financial resources was just a drop in the bucket. "Yes, Grandpa. Then I'll have to trouble you." After quickly communicating with Old Man's son, she smiled and said, "Oh, by the way, Grandpa, can I trouble Brother Little Che to book me an express immortal boat ticket to Glio City?" "Yes. I'm leaving right away. I won't miss school, Grandpa. I'll be back by Monday." After deciding to stay the night in Glio City, Wang Ling took Wang Muyu to the nearest cafe to wait for news from Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal about the hotel. Although Wang Ling had already chosen a very secluded corner, he still attracted a lot of attention. After all, there were blonde foreigners everywhere here, and their two Asian faces really left an impression. Ah, what a cute little brother. Are you brothers? A slightly plump woman who looked very amiable came up to Wang Ling and took the initiative to talk to him. In Mishio Nation's Glio City, these blonde foreigners all spoke in a foreign language, but Wang Ling didn't have to worry about that. Since he had the great language technique, no matter where he went, he would be able to communicate without borders. No matter how rare a foreign language was, he would be able to translate it into clear Mandarin, and the words he took the initiative to speak would also be translated into his native language and enter the minds of the people he was communicating with. But Wang Ling didn't reply, and just nodded gently. In contrast, Wang Muyu appeared more lively. Wang Ling hadn't expected the little guy to also know this trick. Because the little guy had the cultural dragon gene. This dragon didn't have any other abilities except for its culture, which gave Wang Muyu a learning ability that surpassed that of ordinary cultivators and other dragon descendants. He successfully used this ability to act cute, and in the end, the old woman paid the bill for Wang Ling's table. Bye-bye. Before she left, the woman left Wang Muyu a name card and invited him to visit her house if he had the time. Wang Ling really didn't know what to say about this kind of social skills. He felt that this was perhaps one of the few areas in which Wang Muyu was far better than him. A little dragon person who had condensed the essence of all the genes of the dragon clan actually relied on acting cute to make a living abroad, which made Wang Ling feel extremely emotional. Chapter 1770. After Sunny Yuan put down the phone, next to him, Steward Lin frowned slightly. He was standing very close, and Sunny Yuan had deliberately raised his voice so that Steward Lin could hear him. After hearing Lotus Sun's news, this steward, who was even more experienced than Zhang Xiaoche, couldn't help but look worried. Grandpa, I don't think this matter is appropriate. Take young Master Makujio's photo for example. There are many indications that Zhang Xiaoche is involved. On the other hand, there's that new Elder Qin from Battle Sect as a witness. Elder Qin recorded all of Zhang Xiaoche's transactions while he was pretending to be a skunk. In addition, the amount of extra income he earned by relying on intelligence also matched up. I just feel that Master shouldn't continue using him like this. Old Lin. Sunny Yuan raised his hand and gestured at the height of his desk. Xiaoche has been by my side since he was young. I've never treated him as an outsider all this time. As he said this, Sunny Yuan couldn't help sighing. The disappointment in his heart was self-evident. It didn't feel good for anyone to be betrayed by someone they trusted. Zhang Xiaoche wouldn't be able to escape responsibility for selling out information on the group, and there was ample evidence in many areas. At the same time, Sunny Yuan was well aware that Zhang Xiaoche might have done this out of jealousy. Hence, he had never cared much about Wang Ling. Furthermore, Zhang Xiaoche was also well aware that Lotus Sun liked Wang Ling. From the point of view of a rival in love, it wasn't strange for him to do something to disgust Wang Ling. Although Sunny Yuan usually didn't ask about it, he was in fact well aware of his opponent's situation. After a long silence, Sunny Yuan slowly opened his mouth and said in a low voice, Old Lin, Rongrong and I are actually very clear about what you're saying. But I want Xiaoche to understand that it's impossible for him and Rongrong to be together. Master is really kind and soft-hearted. That's his last chance. Sunny Yuan said, if he still refuses to come to his senses, this old man will personally confiscate everything he has now. Steward Lin laughed bitterly. But I don't know if Master is doing this for Miss or for that Wang brat. This is naturally for the future of my Huagua Water Curtain group. I've already asked someone to do some divination, and classmate Wang Ling is born with the attribute of bringing prosperity to his wife. If Rongrong can really be with him in the end, not only will she be able to turn calamities into blessings and prolong her life, her career will also soar, as if she has divine help. Said Sunny Yuan. Is this fortune teller reliable? Butler Lin asked doubtfully. This is very strange. I asked a dozen people, and they all said the same thing. Of course, other than that, it's not like those fortune tellers haven't said anything about the things we need to be wary of. Something that needs to be guarded against? What is it? They said that if Rongrong and classmate Wang Ling end up together, it's very easy for her to get a lumbar disc herniation. Speaking up to this point, Sunny Yuan could not help but frown deeply. Tell me, How can a healthy cultivator suddenly have a lumbar disc protrusion? What exactly did he do to cause the lumbar disc to jump back and forth repeatedly? Butler Lin. Elsewhere, when Jiang Xiaoche heard that Lotus Sun was going to buy an immortal boat ticket to Mishio Nation's Glio City, he quickly made arrangements for her to go abroad. This time, he didn't take the initiative to cause any trouble, because the big fuss with Tengu the last time had mainly been caused by the information he had sold. After his return, Jiang Xiaoche had been on tenterhooks for several days, and even his hair had begun to show signs of decentralization. In the end, Old Man Sun didn't seem to notice, and his attitude toward him didn't change significantly, which made Jiang Xiaoche instantly heave a huge sigh of relief. So this time, Jiang Xiaoche decided that it was better for him to be a little more honest and conservative, and absolutely couldn't cause any more trouble. Although it was said that Jiang Xiaoche had booked the immortal boat ticket, Huaguo Water Curtain Group actually had its own exclusive immortal boat. Lotus Sun's booking the ticket was just for Jiang Xiaoche to contact Mishio Nation's Exit and Entry Administration in hopes of getting a special green route. This was Huaguo Water Curtain Group's privilege as one of the top 100 companies in the world. As long as the green route was allowed to open, everyone on the exclusive immortal boat would be treated as receiving a short-term visa for half a month. It sounded very complicated, but the truth was that Jiang Xiaoche had always been the one to communicate with them about going abroad, so it could be said that he was very familiar with the process. This time, Jiang Xiaoche swore that he absolutely hadn't done anything that violated professional ethics or betrayed the group. But somehow, Lotus Sun's trip had still been leaked to the Tengu team. Wisdom Tree, Glio City, Mishio Nation. The Tengu from all over the world had transformed into remote holographic projections and were sitting in the office for a meeting. It was still that 8-star Tengu called Lord 8, who had appeared earlier, who spoke. We've received news that Miss Sun of Huaguo Water Curtain Group is about to go to Glio City. Go to Glio City? Many Tengu instinctively became vigilant. Could it be that they've already discovered our movements? I don't think so. Our Tengu HQ is extremely well hidden. There's no way they could have found this place just based on what happened in Duobao City last time. I'm afraid they're still here for that legendary child. Lord 8 said, all in all, the 2 pieces of information we've received so far are very reliable. Because both pieces of information were given by Di Zun. Di Zun! Hearing this, the rest of the Tengu team were instantly enlightened. I see. Since Di Zun provided the information, it can't be wrong. Di Zun is really amazing. He can predict things like a god. But Lord 8, how did you get in touch with Di Zun? I'm not qualified to get in touch with Di Zun. It was Di Zun's instructions. Under the mask, this 8-star Tengu frowned and said, actually, I've always felt that we might have more than one Di Zun. What Lord 8 means is that Di Zun is actually made up of many people, just like us. That's just my personal guess. Di Zun can predict things like a god and come and go unpredictably. Is it something that we can easily guess? The Tengu called Lord 8 paused, then said, last time in Duobao City, we suffered a defeat. This time, Miss Sun of Huaguo Water Curtain Group walked right into our trap and came to our core hinterland. Listen to my command. Those with 5 stars and above, get into action. You must complete the attack on the target in Glio City, form a tight intelligence monitoring network, and dig out all the dirt on this young lady. We can't lose this battle again. Otherwise, it will damage our reputation. Under the mask, this Lord 8 smiled. These days, whether it's the entertainment circle or the business circle, there are always more children. This is a big characteristic. I hope everyone will seize this opportunity. If we can win this battle, we might be able to destroy the Huaguo Water Curtain Group and the battle sect in one fell swoop. Chapter 1771. Wang Ling didn't wait long in the coffee shop before a person who looked very much like Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal suddenly pushed open the door and headed straight for Wang Ling's table. Although he looked like Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Wang Ling was sure that this wasn't him, and was probably the legendary grenade-throwing city of Glio of Mishio Nation. Ever since Battle Sect had become the world's #1 sect, it had in fact started to plan for foreign territories and establish branch sections. However, each cultivation country had different histories, cultures, and systems, so it wasn't easy to set up a branch sect. For example, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had encountered a lot of obstacles in Glio of Mishio Nation. However, a sect couldn't go a day without a sect leader, and he still needed his real body to preside over the overall situation. Given this situation, if he encountered any obstacles in setting up a branch sect abroad, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal would leave behind a real clone to carry out the task in his place. Speaking of which, it was Wang Ling who had personally taught Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal this ability. As sect leader, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's work efficiency had clearly improved a lot after the emergence of all kinds of Grenade-throwing City of Glio. Greetings, Ling Zhenren. As soon as they met, this Grenade-throwing City of Glio saluted Wang Ling telepathically. He was wearing a suit and leather shoes, which was exactly what most foreigners in Glio City thought of him. One look and anyone would know that he was an elite among human cultivators. As a typical modern metropolis in Mishio Nation that combines science, technology, and production, Glio always gave the impression that it was a place where elites gathered. It was as if the people walking on the streets were always wearing expensive suits or evening gowns, giving the impression that they had entered the SSR card pool of the human world. It wasn't until he saw Grenade-throwing City of Glio's attire that Wang Ling realized what the problem was. No wonder he and Wang Muyu had been low-key enough, but still attracted a lot of strange gazes. It turned out that there was something wrong with their skin. It had to be said that Grenade-throwing City of Glio was very skilled at his job. He carefully ushered Wang Muyu and Diao Zhenren into the car, and then quickly took out 2 complete suits from a storage container inside the car, which happened to be Wang Ling's and Wang Muyu's sizes. Ling Zhenren and little brother Wooden Fish, please change into them. Ling Zhenren is used to keeping a low profile, so if you wear the same clothes as the people here, you won't attract any special attention, said Grenade-throwing City of Glio. Wang Ling nodded, and then used a spell to directly change clothes in one click. It was a very convenient spell, and Mayor Glio was stunned by it. Through the rearview mirror, he saw how Wang Ling and Wang Muyu looked after they changed into suits. The tailored black suits perfectly complemented Wang Ling's physique. His spotless white cotton shirt and his red tie made him look a lot more spirited and energetic. Coupled with the youthful vibe he exuded, this elite suit formed a perfect combination, like a Tai Chi disc. On the side, Wang Muyu was simply a miniature version of Wang Ling, and Mayor Glio was stupefied. After a long while he started the car and seemed to come back to his senses as he said, sorry, this suit fits Ling Zhenren and little brother Wooden Fish too well, I don't know what to say for a moment. The hotel has already been arranged. It's a hotel that our family just bought. Even if Ling Zhenren and little brother Wooden Fish don't have any immigration records, we don't have to worry about being found out. The battle sect has already thought of a way to complete the relevant formalities. In that instant, Wang Ling suddenly felt very guilty. He had only wanted to buy a packet of crispy noodle snacks, but the battle sect had actually gone to such great lengths to buy a hotel for him. But when Wang Ling thought about it carefully, he suddenly felt that something wasn't right. The battle sect had invested in a lot of cultivation research projects in the last few months, which were the most expensive. On the other hand, it wasn't yet time to harvest the heavenly Dao broccoli, so where would they have the spare money to buy a hotel property abroad? He pondered for a moment and suddenly had a bad premonition. Then, he opened his eyes, and the power of the king's eye directly penetrated the air to help him spy on a distant scene. Sure enough, he saw Lotus Sun boarding an immortal boat and looking like she was in a hurry to go to Glio City. Wang Ling. Ling Zhenren actually doesn't need to feel burdened. Buying a hotel chain abroad is part of the company's expansion plan. Mayor Glio said, by the way, when I was at the entrance of the shop, I saw a woman talking to little brother Wooden Fish. Is Ling Zhenren familiar with this person? Puzzled, Wang Ling looked at the eyes in the rearview mirror. If I'm not mistaken, this person should be a very famous variety producer in Glio City called Michelle Lavin. People call her Madame Lavin. In addition to the technology industry, the entertainment industry in Glio City is actually also very developed. Mayor Glio said, generally speaking, this Madame Lavin won't take the initiative to talk to people. If she takes the initiative to come forward like this, it means that she might already have her eyes on you and little brother Wooden Fish. Variety show? Is it one of those shows on TV where a bunch of big brothers and sisters who are very popular online are invited to make the audience laugh? Wang Muyu couldn't help asking. There are different types of variety shows, but little brother Wooden Fish is actually right. Variety shows in the cultivation world today are essentially designed to make the audience laugh. In order to compete for viewership ratings, The directors and producers of these shows will stop at nothing, Mayor Glio said. Mayor Glio replied, Madame Lavin is the producer of a large-scale reality show. According to the latest planning news, Madame Lavin is planning a parent-child show. Could it be? Where are we going, Dad? Wang Muyu asked. Mayor Glio shook his head. Not really. The news I got is that the show is called Gone, Dad. Wang Ling and Wang Muyu. This Madame Lavin is good at horror variety shows with the theme of curiosity, so she has always been very popular with the audience here, Mayor Glio said. It said that the program of Gone, Dad is to organize several pairs of fathers and sons to go on a trip in an intimate atmosphere to improve their familial relationship. Then, they will set up an accident midway. For example, there might be a sudden car accident that will turn the dad into a mosaic or something. In short, all kinds of accidents will cause the dads to be eliminated one after another. Finally, the camera will be completely focused on the children so that the audience can see their reactions. Wang Ling didn't know whether this variety show would be good or not. But Wang Ling felt that the producers who planned this kind of show were really stupid. Even if he had already been targeted by this Madame Lavin, there was no way he would take part in this kind of variety show. Besides, he only had one day to go, and he had to go back tomorrow. He still had school tasks to complete and homework to do. Chapter 1772. On the way to Dalio City, Lotus Sun sat in her family's private immortal boat and followed a specially approved green route. She had already planned everything on the immortal boat. While discussing how to spend a beautiful and fulfilling day with Wang Ling, she wouldn't arouse his disgust because she was too proactive. In the past, when faced with this kind of situation, Lotus Sun would always take the initiative to find a few acquaintances to travel with her, such as Super Chen, Hero Gua, and Li Yuiwei. These were already regular members of the team, and they had good judgment, knew how to do things, and most importantly, could assist her. This trip abroad was actually a little troublesome. She felt that Super Chen and the others might not be willing to go with her, but she hadn't expected that when she asked them in the group, they would actually all agree. Lotus Sun was startled on the spot. You're even willing to go abroad? Is it the same as before, with round-trip plane tickets, food and accommodation, Boss Sun? Hero Gua sent an emoji of sending roses. Of course. I invited you so it should be me who pays, said Lotus Sunday, then it's fine. Super Chen added, also, Chow'er and I have always wanted to go to Dalio City. It's the technological paradise of modern cultivation games. Although the schedule is a little tight, as long as we have this, you and Wang Ling can rest assured. Just leave it to us. Perhaps influenced by Super Chen's impassioned speech, Lotus Sun's blood also began to boil as she listened. But because she had already been checking in when she had made the invitation, she had spent a lot of money and booked another immortal boat for the three of them, which was expected to arrive in Dalio City an hour later than her. Sure enough, she couldn't do it without the help of her friends, and she would feel empty. It was like buying drinks for a boy she liked. In order to not be too obvious, she would usually buy several bottles and distribute them to the boys she wanted to give them as well as to the people around him. This way, it wouldn't look too obvious. Miss, we'll be there in 3 hours. Steward Lin stood respectfully on the side of the immortal boat. He had been sent by Old Man Sun specifically to protect Lotus Sunday. But to be honest, Lotus Sun didn't really think it was clear who would be protecting whom. Speaking of which, Butler Lin was also an elder of the family who had watched him grow up. In terms of seniority, he was even higher than the first-level elders of the group. Back then, he followed Old Man Sun to start the business and held the original shares. Although it wasn't a lot, Butler Lin still had billions of assets. Lotus Sun knew that it was her grandfather's idea for Steward Lin to follow her. In order to reassure the elders, she naturally couldn't refuse and could only agree. Uncle Lin, don't keep standing by my side. Why don't you lie down and rest? Lotus Sun asked with a smile. How can I do that? It's my duty to protect the young miss. In addition, we received quite a few threatening letters a while ago. Young Miss's safety is also what Master is most concerned about. Steward Lin said, if we ignore these threatening letters like we did the last few times, it's very likely that we'll attract vicious people like Shadowstream. But Shadowstream has already been wiped out. Lotus Sun did not know whether to laugh or cry. The truth was that after Shadowstream had disappeared, there had actually been quite a few assassins and mercenary organizations targeting her. but their overall operational capabilities were clearly not as strong as shadow streams. Mistaking them for the wrong people every time gave Lotus Sun a double headache. Their realms were indeed higher than shadow streams, but for some reason, their IQ had plummeted. Logically speaking, cultivators with high realms like to fly around in the sky in a flashy manner. Once their feet left the ground, the virus would shut down, and their smart IQ would once again take the high ground. But now, these mercenaries she ran into all looked like they were suffering from brain hemorrhages. So every time this happened, Lotus Sun especially missed the days when Shadow Stream had tried to assassinate her. She wondered how those Shadow Stream sisters were doing in prison. "What are you thinking about, young miss?" Steward Lin couldn't help asking as he looked at Lotus Sun's thoughtful expression. "No. I'm just thinking about two old friends." Lotus Sun rubbed the space between her eyebrows and said, "Uncle Lin, do you remember the Shadow Stream sisters who were captured half a year ago?" "So young miss is thinking about them?" Steward Lin's face was indifferent. "These killers treat human life as grass, and they're never worth tolerating. Young miss, you don't need to blame yourself or even forgive them." "I'm not thinking about forgiving them." Lotus Sun shook her head and said, "I just suddenly feel that the appearance of this group of people has made me grow up a lot. From an opponent's point of view, I think that this pair of sisters are of pretty high quality." "Young miss is right," Steward Lin said. "They're currently being held in a women's prison, and it's said that they're doing well. But it'll probably be 100 years before they're released from prison." "Have they been sentenced for that long?" "Not as long as the Mahjong squad in Songhai First Prison. If they're reformed well, it's possible that their sentences will be reduced." Lotus Sun nodded slightly. Actually, she really wanted to find an opportunity to see these Shadow Stream sisters, because she had always been very curious about who on earth the mastermind behind the scenes who had hired Shadow Stream to assassinate her back then was. But out of professionalism, it was said that Jiang Luiying and Jiang Luiwe hadn't sold out their clients. It was for this reason that they had been sentenced to heavier punishments in the end. Otherwise they wouldn't have been imprisoned for more than 100 years each. At that moment, Lotus Sun was cupping her chin in her hands as she pondered, when she suddenly sensed a powerful killing intent coming from the sky. Boom! With a loud bang, a spirit power missile fired from who knew where accurately hit the spirit energy barrier of the immortal boat Lotus Sun was on. She was under attack. Someone was shooting at her with a missile. If it hadn't been for the spirit power barrier that had been set up around the immortal boat, the power of this missile would have been enough to destroy the boat on the spot. This clearly wasn't a mistake, but an attack that had been planned for a long time. The other party had come prepared. But everyone in the immortal boat was very calm, including the captain of the immortal boat. All the members were elite employees of the group who had been carefully selected by Sunny Yuan, and they had very strong mental fortitude and ability to react to sudden dangers. After the immortal boat had been attacked, the captain had quickly contacted the control tower to report the situation and try to land at a nearby berth. "There's no need to land. Head straight for Glio City." At that moment, Lotus Sun had turned on the voice call button to communicate directly with the captain. "Miss, this will be dangerous. The other party is clearly targeting us." "It's fine, Uncle Lin. In fact, my Shifu already anticipated this, so she gave me a magic treasure to keep close to my body so that I can deal with this danger." "Mrs. Shifu? When did Miss have a Shifu?" "It's that legendary elder in the battle sect called Wang Meili. She took student Jiang Yingying as her disciple." "So it's her, the beautiful sister that student Jiang mentioned?" Steward Lin was shocked. "Why didn't Miss say anything about this from the start?" "My Shifu likes to keep a low profile, so she told me not to mention her identity to others." "I see." Steward Lin nodded. As soon as he said this, a second shell came from the flank. Without another word, she used the cover of her identity as Wang Meili to release the mysterious sea's disguised sword chi in front of everyone. The moment the crimson sword chi seeped out of the ferry boat, an astonishing spiritual pressure immediately followed. With the ferry boat as the center, it began to trace the location where the missiles were launched in all directions. From an extremely far distance, it accurately grabbed the Tengu sentinel who was responsible for launching the missiles in the dark, as if it was a little chick. She had the power of the Nine Corps' mysterious sea. Not to mention the missile. Even a nuclear bomb couldn't hurt her. Chapter 1773. The sword chi of the 9-core mysterious sea was extremely powerful. Even though these two soul formation Tengu sentries were at the soul formation stage, they were as insignificant as 2 ants in front of Lotus Sunday. In the wisdom tree, several high-ranking Tengu members with stars on their foreheads stood tall. They were in control of the overall situation. Although they had already anticipated that Battle Sect would have a way to protect Lotus Sun, they hadn't expected them to be so strong. Capturing Lotus Sun was the main task of their plan, and in addition to this, the Tengu in the wisdom tree had also decided to complete their plan to split Battle Sect. What powerful sword chi! I wonder what kind of expert Battle Sect has sent. This red sword chi looks a little like the expert who went to Bountiful Treasure City to rescue that Jiang Yingying. You mean that woman called Wang Meili who wears a 9-tailed fox mask? That's right. This person is very strong. She's not even afraid of the Doomsday Straw Senior left us. It's fine. Let's stick to the original plan. The 8-star Tengu leader called Lord 8 waved his hand. No matter how lucky this young miss is, we'll win as long as we complete one of the 2 tasks in this battle. On the other side, Lotus Sun used the mysterious sea's disguised sword chi to accurately pinpoint the positions of the Tengu sentries and knocked them out. But as they fainted, the positions of their accomplices were swiftly exposed. Lotus Sun was stunned to discover that there were more than 2 people lying in ambush below. They had only stuck their heads out to launch missiles. Apart from that, she also sensed the auras of at least 1,000 people lurking in the water around an island. Their average strength was at the soul formation stage. An army of 1,000 people at the soul formation stage. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to describe it as horrifying. Uncle Lin, what island is that under our immortal boat? It's the Southern Sky Islands, Steward Lin answered quickly. He was very clear about their current geographical location. This was an immortal island in the South China Sea of Wuxia Nation. Although it wasn't large, it was rich in resources, and had been brutally invaded by Mishio Nation's Marine Immortal Spell mobile team a few years ago. Although this group of people was later expelled, the Southern Sky Archipelago was still not peaceful in the past few years. 8 or 9 out of 10 people wanted to visit the island. Over time, under Mishio's leadership, the Southern Sky Archipelago became a controversial immortal island in the South Sea, which Mishio used as a cultivation strategy to restrain. After listening to Steward Lin's explanation, Lotus Sun frowned deeply. Uncle Lin, there are over 1,000 people hiding at the bottom of the South Sky Islands. A full regiment. Is that normal? A regiment? Did Miss sense it with Miss Wang Meili's magic treasure? That's right. The magic treasure my master gave me is very powerful. Nantian Islands are known as the maritime border, and are a symbol of our Wuxia Nation's territorial waters. As far as I know, there are less than 500 sea border troops on our island. This was because the nearby immortal warships could be mobilized at any time to provide reinforcements. They are stationed on the island every day, enduring the sun and the wind. Diving into the sea in a group like this kind of behavior, is definitely not their style. As Steward Lin spoke, he couldn't help frowning, and very quickly, his forehead broke out in a cold sweat. If these cultivators hiding at the bottom of the sea weren't from the maritime border garrison, then it was very likely that they were invading enemies. The situation seemed to have become troublesome. Steward Lin never thought that they would actually run into something like this on this green route to Mishio Nation. Nantian Islands are known as the maritime border, and are a symbol of our Wuxia Nation's territorial waters. We can't just give them away, Steward Lin said. Miss, the maritime border garrison will handle this matter. It's not appropriate for us to intervene. Lotus Sun, so it's possible that this group of people isn't targeting me? Steward Lin, it's hard to say right now. But I took 2 hits, I can't take it for nothing, can I? Lotus Sun frowned and thought for a moment before saying, How about this, Uncle Lin? Have the pilot raise the immortal boat a little higher, and we'll hover in the air and watch. If these people persist in going about things the wrong way, we can think of a way to support them. She had initially just wanted to get rid of those 2 Tengu bastards and reunite with Wang Ling as soon as possible, but she hadn't expected to run into this on the way. As a young person who had been educated in modern patriotism, she now had the strength to defend her country. At the same time, she was young and full of hot-bloodedness and the heroic spirit of a cultivator. Lotus Sun felt that she really couldn't sit idly by when something like this happened. Very well, miss. Steward Lin nodded. He knew Lotus Sun's personality. Once she decided to do something, he wouldn't be able to dissuade her. He could only agree for the time being and think of another way. Of course, the most important thing was to think of a way to protect Lotus Sun. While he was pondering this, he heard Lotus Sun look at him and say, "Uncle Lin, protect yourself. If a fight breaks out, I'm afraid I won't be able to use the magic treasure my Shifu gave me in the immortal boat. I definitely have to go out and fight." "Me, protect myself?" Steward Lin was stunned. "That's right, Uncle Lin. Just protect yourself. Otherwise, I'll have to protect you as I fight." Lotus Sun smiled. At that moment, Steward Lin was even more stunned. He had never heard of this Wang Meili. If it hadn't been for the abduction of Battle Saint's adopted daughter, he wouldn't have thought that there was such a person hidden in Battle Sect. However, there was no doubt about Wang Meili's strength. To be able to single-handedly rescue Jiang Yingying unscathed, this alone was already impressive enough. But Steward Lin was really curious about when on earth this Wang Meili had accepted Lotus Sun as her disciple. If the young miss really fought with this group of invading enemies, what kind of performance would she have? At the same time, Wang Ling followed Thunder Glio into the hotel they were staying in. Wang Ling used his power of sight to directly switch the image in the air to the southern Sky Islands. This was no longer peeping. He was watching in broad daylight. The main thing was that Wang Muyu also wanted to watch. He could only go along with the little guy's wishes. Seeing this, Thunder Glio sighed with emotion in his heart. As expected of Ling Zhenren, he was so confident even when peeping. Even if he wasn't, he was still confident. "Is that Mom?" Wang Muyu cried out excitedly when he saw the image. Wang Ling really didn't care about her. He was just worried about Tengu's little tricks. He knew that the 1,000 soul formation cultivators lying in ambush on the southern Sky Islands were all part of Tengu's plan, and he vaguely felt that something wasn't right. Although the 2 missiles that had attacked the immortal boat earlier hadn't succeeded, they had still attracted the attention of the sea border garrison. At that moment, a lean man with an extraordinary bearing and an azure robe stepped forward. His name was Li Weiwei, and he was the commander of the sea border garrison on the southern Sky Islands. Standing at the very front, he used the loudest telepathic spell to shout in all directions, "Anyone who trespasses on the sea border will be killed without mercy." In that instant, his voice was so loud that it shook the surface of the sea, kicking up waves more than 10 meters high and sweeping in all directions. Chapter 1774. Li Weiwei's roar was completely out of the expectations of the hidden heavenly hounds. However, this time, they had gathered a large number of people. 1,000 soul formation cultivators were not afraid of Li Weiwei's 500-man island sea border defense regiment. The leader of the Heavenly Hounds wore a 5-star Jason mask. He was the commander of this operation and also the person with the highest cultivation level in the soul-forming stage. He was in the 9th level of the soul-forming stage. He was only half a cloth away from breaking through. "Commander Li, how have you been?" He was an old man with a walking stick. He wore a sea beast skin coat. He protruded from the bottom of the sea, but there was not a single drop of water on him. This time, all the deity transformation stage cultivators gathered here were cultivators who majored in the water element. More than half of them had water-type spiritual roots, which greatly enhanced their combat prowess in water-related environments. This was one of the reasons why the Heavenly Hounds were so fearless. "Leave now." Li Weiwei did not say anything else. He did not have a good temper when faced with enemies. As he spoke, the spiritual light on his body surged, as if he was ready to fight at any time. So unyielding. The leader of the Heavenly Hounds smiled, revealing a mouthful of yellow teeth under his mask. "I am not here today to fight Commander Li. Although we have the advantage in numbers, Commander Li is not someone to be trifled with. If we really fight, it will be a lose-lose situation. Since you know that, then get lost." Li Weiwei's tone was impatient. The Heavenly Hound pretended not to hear him and continued talking. "Actually, Commander Li also thinks that there is no need for us to fight, right? There is indeed no need to exchange our lives for the lives of our brothers in the border defense troop. Whether there is a need or not depends on your attitude." Li Weiwei was fearless. He took a step forward. "The men of the border defense troop will not allow outsiders to invade. If you want to fight, none of us here are afraid of death. Commander Li, you are too anxious. I have said that my purpose for coming here is not to fight. The Heavenly Hound Elder cackled. One last question. Commander Li, aren't you curious as to how we were able to gather 1,000 soul formation cultivators and surround this place without you noticing? Li Weiwei frowned and did not speak. This group of people had come very strangely. They had hidden under the sea as if they had appeared out of thin air. Furthermore, during this process, they had deliberately shot 2 missiles at the immortal ship in the sky. Although they didn't manage to shoot it down, their provocative behavior was enough to show their confidence. The person sitting on the immortal warship is the eldest daughter of Huaguo Water Curtain Group. This green flight route was originally prepared by Battle Sect for this young lady. Now, Huaguo Water Curtain Group and Battle Sect have a cooperative relationship. The old man ignored Li Weiwei's increasingly solemn gaze and sneered. What are you trying to say? Li Weiwei frowned deeply. It's very simple. The Heavenly Hound Elder spoke with confidence. Commander Li, think about it. Why were we able to appear out of thin air near this island and lay in ambush here in advance? The reason is very simple, and that is, my Heavenly Hound people are currently in Huaguo Water Curtain Group and Battle Sect. Lotus Sun was instantly dumbfounded when she heard this. Only then did she realize the Heavenly Hound's true purpose. Lotus Sun, this bunch of people are really spouting nonsense. They actually said there are Heavenly Hound people in the group and Battle Sect. It seems that this bunch of Heavenly Hounds have appeared here to sow discord. Steward Lin also felt that the situation wasn't good. Battle Sect was developing too fast and too strong now. Although Wuxia Alliance was partly in control of Battle Sect, as the #1 sect on Earth at the moment, the Western countries had never stopped smearing Battle Sect's name. For example, in Mishio Nation, there was a very dangerous rumor that Battle Sect's achievements were above all others, and that it was a country within a country. Now, the Heavenly Hound was using this tactic to sow discord. Steward Lin couldn't help sighing in his heart as this deepened the internal suspicions. It was likely that Battle Sect wouldn't have an easy time in the days to come. On the other side, Li Weiwei's expression was also rather unsightly when he heard this Heavenly Hound Elder's words. He couldn't completely believe what this old man said, but it was indeed possible that Heavenly Hounds existed in Huaguo Water Curtain Group and Battle Sect. He had to report this important information to his superiors. As for anything else, he could only leave it to his superiors to investigate. Now, his priority was to expel all of these invading Heavenly Hounds. What you said has nothing to do with me. All I want is for you to get the hell out of Nantian Islands. Li Weiwei snorted and stepped forward. Spirit light flickered over his body as he summoned silver armor, and put it on as he directly prepared for battle. What? I brought such valuable information to Commander Li, and you still want to make a move? BZZT. The nearby sea and the entire Nantian Islands shook, and a terrifying spirit power seeped out of the water. It was as if a deep-sea behemoth that had been hibernating in the depths of the sea was awakening. Li Weiwei instantly became extremely vigilant. He could feel that this Heavenly Hound Elder in front of him, who was in the 9th level of soul formation, was far more powerful than this. Those who invade my sea border will be killed without mercy. Li Weiwei was incomparably resolute. With a battle cry, all the soldiers on the island were stirred up. Everyone shared a common enemy. Their faces were filled with caution and some anger. Not a single one of them had any intention of retreating. Commander Li, I told you earlier that our side and your side had a 50-50 chance, and you actually believed me? You're trying to hit a rock with an egg. What's the point? If you can make it back alive today, remember to convey my thanks to Battle Sect and Huaguo Water Curtain Group for providing you with the information, the old man said with a smile. Rumble. At the same time, a wall of water dozens of meters tall formed behind him, covering the sky and the sun. It was shaped like the palm of the sea god, and it was terrifying beyond compare. It was completely under the old man's control. There was no need for the 1,000 soldiers behind him at all. Just the old man's power alone was enough to make people's hair stand on end. In that instant, the overwhelming spiritual pressure came crashing down. Just the power of one palm was enough to make everyone on the island feel as if they were carrying a huge mountain on their backs, unable to bear it. This spiritual pressure was too great, and many people were unable to move. Don't even think of trapping me. Li Weiwei gritted his teeth and took a step forward. Then, He began to run forward with a kind of tyrannical and overbearing spiritual power. With every step he took, the soles of his feet sank a little. It looked like he was using brute force, but in reality, he was calm. Using his physical body to form a ball, he charged towards a certain coordinate point and finally crashed into a spirit stone. The moment the spirit stone shattered, the defensive formation on the island was also activated at the same time. In an instant, dozens of chains came from all directions around the South Sky Islands. They accurately shot towards the invading enemy. These were all immortal binding chains made from the materials of the spirit shackles. If a cultivator touched them, they would be unable to use their spiritual power. Suppress! The old man didn't care about these immortal binding chains at all. His palms gave birth to a dark blue spirit light, which contained a kind of withering power. In an instant, endless mist rose up from all around and surrounded the entire island. This method shocked Li Weiwei, because he could see that these defensive immortal binding chains were being rapidly corroded by the corrosive mist, which was filled with the smell of seawater, at a speed visible to the naked eye. Things aren't looking good. It looks like Commander Li is in trouble. Steward Lin was watching the battle from a distance through the equipment in the immortal boat. Seeing Li Weiwei in a deadlock, he became extremely anxious and hurriedly said, "Miss, stay here and don't move. I'll go down and help him." As soon as he said this, he noticed that Lotus Sun, who had been sitting next to him, was nowhere to be seen. There was an escape hatch at the end of the immortal boat. At this time, Lotus Sun had already put on the nine-tailed fox mask of Beautiful Wang, and was fully armed. After taking a deep breath, she leaped off the cliff. Chapter 1775. Inside a hotel suite in Glio City, Wang Ling used the king's eye to closely observe movements in the distance. From the very beginning, he had sensed that there was something strange about this old man who was disguised as a level 9 soul formation cultivator, and his strength was far more than that. The spirit shackles and immortal binding shackles were magic treasures that Wang Ming had developed using extracts from the talisman seals on him. They could suppress a cultivator's spirit energy and spirit power, and were essential items for law enforcement in the cultivation world. They were collectively known as sealed spirit objects. After Earth had been upgraded, the spirit shackles and immortal binding shackles had improved again, and could now suppress most cultivators on Earth. The only prerequisite was that a cultivator's battle strength far surpassed Earth's, and they could ignore the effects of the sealed spirit object. When Li Weiwei broke through the traps that had been set up on the island beforehand with his physical body, the defensive spirit sealing array was instantly activated. Dozens of immortal binding shackles moved in unison, and any cultivator on Earth would be startled at the sight of this. This was an artifact that even true immortals would be suppressed for a short period of time, and it was even more difficult for soul formation cultivators to deal with. However, the old man in front of him had directly disintegrated the seawater behind him into a withered sea mist, which instantly corroded the immortal binding shackles. Accompanied by the hazy sea mist, a demonic creature with the head of a lion and the body of a fish abruptly appeared behind the old man, giving off a dark blue spirit light. Roar! With a roar, the seawater churned, and the ground of the island collapsed on the spot and directly exploded in a terrifying manner. Wang Ling could see that this was the spirit of the old man's Dharma idol. This proved that this old man was at least at the ancestral level. He was as strong as Peng Shiren, or even the monk, whom Wang Ling had met before. He had summoned the wind and rain here, but hadn't used his full strength. He had just been playing around. Given the battle strength of an ancestral expert, a real fight would be like a Star War, where planets were used as bowling balls. The matter with Heavenly Dog hadn't been completely sorted out yet, but an ancestral expert had already appeared. Then, what realm was the real mastermind behind Heavenly Dog? Did this have something to do with Baizha? Wang Ling cupped his chin, feeling very curious. He felt that the whole thing wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. It was all connected to the Ancient Ones, the old Japanese, and the dragon descendants that Baizha was currently playing as the leader of the dragon clan. However, this was all in the future. He could only slowly analyze it when the matter was more in-depth. Taking the current situation as an example, the old man who had summoned a lion-headed fish body as a Dharma aspect life form was doing everything according to his plan. The goal was to create enmity between Battle Sect, Huagua Water Curtain Group and Huaxiao Alliance, thereby directly breaking them apart from the inside. Thus, Wang Ling deduced that this old man wouldn't really kill Li Weiwei, and would definitely leave him alive to pass on the message. However, the lives of the other soldiers on the island could not be guaranteed. At that moment, Wang Ling sighed in his heart. He didn't expect that there would be so many problems when he came out to exchange for a snack. A martial ancestor realm expert bullying a group of earth cultivators who were protecting the country was really a bit too much. It could be said that he did not care about martial ethics at all. Will Daddy do it? Wang Muyu looked at the image projected by the king's eye with excitement on his face. Wang Ling nodded expressionlessly. He didn't want to interfere. However, if the other party went too far, he would intervene in the end. But now, it seemed that someone had beaten him to it. As the commander of the Border Defense Regiment of the Sea Region Garrison, the moment Li Weiwei saw the sealed spirit item destroyed, he already knew that the old man in front of him had extraordinary strength, and was far from being an expert that Li Weiwei could contend with. Even though Li Weiwei was already close to his physical limit and was breaking out in a cold sweat due to fear, Li Weiwei still didn't take a step back. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In the distance, several self-defense spirit power missiles fired by the Immortal Arts Mobile Squadron came flying in from afar. The moment Li Weiwei had activated the Southern Sky Archipelago's positional array, the Immortal Arts Mobile Squadron had already received the reinforcement signal, and they immediately aimed their cannons at the enemy. The missiles were extremely fast, moving at dozens of times the speed of sound as they aimed at the old man and the Tengu troops behind him. You're using this kind of scrap metal to deal with this old man? Aren't you looking down on me a little too much? The old man stepped forward without any defensive stance at all, and spread out the sea mist to surround himself and the entire Tengu troop. Just as several missiles approached, the sea mist seemed to be endowed with intelligence and instantly surrounded them. In an instant, the missiles were disintegrated by the mist and turned into withered bullets. I have the withered sea mist protecting me. Even meteorites can't get close to me, let alone your missiles. He sneered. Even though he couldn't see the old man's face, Li Weiwei could feel the arrogance and savagery under the mask. This was no longer an enemy that could be dealt with through normal means. The other party's combat strength exceeded the dimensional level and was so powerful that it was hair-raising. It was even possible that he wasn't an earthling. For a moment, Li Weiwei's mind was filled with thoughts as he thought about all sorts of possibilities. The other soldiers on the island also gasped. All of them were holding on. Even though they weren't afraid of death, it was still difficult to avoid physical fear. The pressure that the old man exuded was too strong. It was as if he was a figure from another universe and another world. Just standing in front of him without moving made their bodies stiffen. It was as if they had been cast with some kind of immobilization spell, unable to move a single step. At the same time, they knew very well that the old man definitely hadn't used his true strength. He was just playing around. Swoosh. At that moment, another ear-piercing sound of something tearing through the air came from the sky. The old man was completely used to it. I've said it before. You pieces of scrap metal are useless. He had his hands behind his back and was proud and aloof. He didn't care about the missiles that were shot at him at all. He puffed out his chest, looking like he was ready to face the attack head-on. This was a kind of conceit that was revealed because he had enough confidence in his own strength. He didn't believe that anything could really hurt him. So what if Earth had already been upgraded? The strength of these cultivators on Earth would still be unable to reach the level of the God realm in a short period of time. Even if he took 10,000 steps back, even if it was really those cultivators from the God realm, he could still sweep them away. Thus he laughed loudly. Come on, let me see what other tricks you have up your sleeves. Then there was a bang. A figure, to be exact, a figure emitting red sword chi, dragged a ferocious spiritual light and accurately hit the back of the old man's waist with his head. The old man's face immediately contorted, and several of his front teeth broke. With a cry, he spat out a large mouthful of blood. At that moment, Li Weiwei and the soldiers behind him all revealed horrified looks. What did they see? A woman wearing a nine-tailed fox mask, directly smashing the old man's defense with her head. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.